Pursuant to Governor Abbott's temporary suspension of open meetings laws issued on March 16, 2020, this regular board meeting of the West ISD Board of Trustees will be conducted via video conference and telephone call. The video conference will be audible to the board and the public and allow for two-way communication. The Board of Trustees will not be physically present at one location, but a quorum will be required for the meeting on the video conference or phone. A recording of this meeting will be available to the West ISD YouTube channel, or available on the West ISD YouTube channel. The public may access this meeting via Zoom. That link is located at the West ISD website. The meeting ID and the passwords are also present at that website. The Zoom meeting link is also provided at the West ISD website under the calendar section of the website. An electronic copy of the agenda may be viewed. This link is also located at the West ISD website. Any public comments must be submitted between 8 a.m. on Monday, July 6th and 4 p.m. on Tuesday, July the 7th, 2020 by emailing the comments to publiccomment@westisd.net. All public comments shall be submitted to this email address and will be read to the Board of Trustees for consideration. I now call this meeting to order and verify that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, I would ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag is located over Mr. Truitt's shoulder. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you please bow your heads with me. Almighty God, we seek your blessing and guidance tonight during our meeting. Our Heavenly Father, we ask for your guidance for the administrators and the faculties during this upcoming school year. And we ask you to grant a healthy year to all our employees and the students and all those associated with ISD. We want to thank you for the blessings you've bestowed upon us. And in this time of sickness and uncertainty, we acknowledge your sovereignty over all things. Blessed be your holy name. Amen. Thank y'all. Oops, here I am. Okay, Amanda, this brings us to the audience portion. Did we have any questions?
No, sir.
Great. All right. Agenda item number 6 is an action item. It's a consideration of possible action by the board to approve the consent agenda. You've had the opportunity to look this over since it was posted. If there are no questions or comments, the floor is now open for a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. Jason Yannick, I see your hand. He has made the motion to accept the consent agenda. Is there a second? I see Kenny's hand go up for the second. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda as presented, please show of hands or say aye. Aye, okay. Thank you very much. Looks like 7-0, Lee. All right. Agenda item number 7 is a report. It's the new West Elementary School Board update. All right. Dan?
We're going to have I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say we'll have Mr. McKeska introduce Dan and explain a little bit about kind of an intro for the presentation. Dan, thanks for joining us. We're excited about hearing an update on the bond process.
We've got Dan Wegmiller of Specialized Public Finance with us tonight to give us a bond market update just so we can continue our planning. Dan?
Great. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Mr. Truitt. Board, Dan Wegmiller with Specialized Public Finance, the financial advisor to the district. With the bonds that your voters authorized back in November, we were talking with administration over the last few months, really since the election, with the idea of not going to market until you were, one, ready to move forward with the funding of the bond amount. In addition to that, There's one small refunding opportunity that also exists with rates being so low. And that's kind of my segue into the market update. We've had a lot going on, obviously, with COVID, the shutdown. The one thing I can tell you is the bond market is as strong as it's ever been. Interest rates are still at historic low levels. We did go through a period of time in late March that really slowed. Bond sales were picking up 1 or 2 or 3 bids that tried to come to market at the beginning of the shutdown. But what's transpired since is just a renewed interest in the municipal bond sector. I think some understanding, unlike 2008, 9, 10, during that recession period, what happened was investment banks, mortgage were kind of the underlying issue. Here, it's COVID and it's the spread of COVID as opposed to financial institutions. Your support for these bonds is through your property tax base. One of the things we've been in conversation with Charles over is just making sure there's the stability to your tax base. There's no consequence of the shutdown that has a material impact on that. That said, the opportunity to go to the market, incorporate it within this budget cycle, the new debt. We had estimated back when we were going through different summaries or scenarios for you on the potential bond election, we were estimating interest rates in the mid to low 3% range. Going into market now, we would be somewhere in the 2s, mid to high 2% range. So the good news is the market's better than when voters approved it. We are working with sizing the bond issue. The idea would be we go and apply for a bond rating later this month. We have a bond rating assigned by Standard & Poor's around first week of August. And then we could come back to you at your August 12th board meeting to award the bonds, lock in the interest rate, and we can see kind of where the the appetite is for how much to issue. And then, we had discussed at one point splitting this issue potentially, and we can just kind of monitor those things and come back to you on the August board meeting and kind of update you where we are on the full capacity. But the interest rates are good. I think your property values are still in good shape. And again, the focus of COVID impact has been sales tax, hotel motel tax, not as much property tax impact as people have been looking at. So again, the market's strong for your school bonds, for school bonds in general, and we're ready to kick that process off. And I'm obviously available for any questions.
Any questions for Dan?
Well, Dan, obviously that's awesome news, and the August board meeting is great timing as that's even a budget night for Charles. So we appreciate your work between now and then to inform us on how best to move forward. But hearing the 2s is awesome news. I know our community will like to hear that the rates are even better than predicted. So fantastic.
Yes.
So that would save us potentially 1% of the bond amount. Is that what we're saying of the interest rate?
So what it means is if we were to sell today, we'd probably be somewhere in the 2s. So it could be 50 basis points or more. And so it'll just reduce the annual interest impact. So the overall interest cost would be reduced on the bonds. So we'll have that information when we sell. Hopefully we stay on track. The COVID thing put everything and has put a lot of us on being very cautious about where we go. The market has not really shrunk away from municipal bonds. A number of firms did for a period of time. but we, like I said, if all holds together, the opening of the economy continues at whatever pace it is. You all have good plans for your school year. I think doing it in August, as I told Charles, would be a great opportunity to go ahead and lock this piece in, and then you focus on building the facilities.
Thank you.
Pretty good. Thank you.
David, in a question for him, but how do we make sure, besides this being public, that our community does know that there's not as much of an impact on property taxes? Because that was one of the pushbacks for us.
After we hear Dan's presentation in August, I think I'll make it a focus of an article, particularly in the West News, even giving them an update on where we are with George also, but also Dan's news. I think our community would like to hear where things are. I know the West News, Larry's asked me to do an update on the West Elementary project article. He wanted it in June, but I didn't have much to share at that time, but August will be a way better timeline to share both updates. So I'll make sure that happens.
Anything
Any
else?
other questions for Dan? That was a good one, Holly. Well, Dan, I know that wasn't much time, but we're glad you joined us. Thank you for that news, and we'll make sure you're on the August agenda.
Okay, thank you. I'll either be there or by Zoom again, whichever you call for.
Exactly. All right, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That brings us to agenda item number 8, which is also a report. And that's on the new West Elementary School Design and Color Board update. It's going to be presented by George Dijon and Carrie Cuzda. Take it away.
Let's see, there's Carrie. I saw her down below. Hey, Carrie. George, thanks for joining us. You can see he has some things in the background. We're going to let him take over also with doing some presentation pieces. We met recently face-to-face. George was kind enough to come social distance with us because everything up until that last meeting was really over technology, and it's just been hard with the COVID-19 pieces. But we had a very productive meeting. It's a starting point for what you're going to hear tonight. Remember, starting point is the key as we talk through this, but we wanted to kind of share some drawings that they've created of different shared spaces, and then go through some color board pieces of different aspects of the school. And Ms. Cause is going to help us with explaining where some of those things are going, in addition, of course, to George. So take it away, George. Glad you're with us.
Thanks. Good to see all you guys again. Like David said, I got to meet with some of the staff and go over some of this. We always say after design, it almost seems like we disappear because we get into construction documents. And so those are nearly completed, but still, as we go through it, everyone gets to look at the colors and the materials. So what I'm going to do tonight for you, and by all means, stop me or wave at me. It's going to be a little hard to see these even with the camera. I'll put it up close when we get to it. But know that when we're done with this, once we get it settled, we'll deliver this board to the admin building. So you can come by and see it, and if you want to feel the materials or anything like that. What I'm first going to do is show you the renderings. You've seen these before, but you'll notice that we changed some of the colors on them. And then I'm probably going to go back and forth between the camera and sharing the screen so you can see the actual material and how it relates to the rendering. So that's, let me see if we can do this. All right, everybody see that big picture of the school?
Yes.
Cool. And then meanwhile, I'm going to get this set while I'm doing that. And like I said, we're going to kind of do two things at once here. This is going to be real exciting. Y'all get excited about it. Okay, so not much changed on the exterior. We've still got the brick that matches the high school, middle school. So we've got the red and white, the big stone with West at the top with the letters. I do want to highlight a couple of things on the high school, middle school. For the white brick, it's actually more of a burnished block, or it looks like a stone almost. We are using a brick. It should help save some cost, but gives the same look. And then the red brick, we're working to get an exact match on it. What we've got, I like to speak in coin terms that, you know, if a color's a little bit off at the nickel or a dime, we're a couple pennies off, so we're pretty close, but we're gonna keep narrowing that down to get the exact one. The white will, like I said, will be a color match, but it will be a brick product. If you can, I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen, but the, zoom in on this. We've got some areas around the building that have this metal panel that's a dark gray metal panel. And then over at some of the windows, not on this side, on the, oh, yeah, you can't see it right there. In between the windows, a metal panel that, again, is matching some of that look over at the high school. And so for that, and again, this doesn't do much for you on the, if you can see my, here, let me jump back to this. How do I stop share? I don't know if that did anything for you, but this one right here, again, when you see it in person, it's just a metal aluminum panel that's a dark gray. And then this one here is an actual clear anodized aluminum that'll be for your window frame. Go back to this one. So that's pretty much it on the exterior. Any questions on those before I jump to some interior shots, or shall I keep going?
Go ahead.
Okay, we'll keep going.
All right.
This is called the entry, but it's really looking back towards the entry. We're standing, if you walked into the school and then turned around, this is what you'd see. One thing you may notice is that we really emphasized the colors of West ISD. Before we had all the colors that you see on the board here, which we still have these colors in the project, but for the main common spaces, we focused on reds, grays, whites, and then some accents of black here and there. We do still have the elements down the corridor, you know, with the letters refuel and recharge at the dining, down at the gym, it's, you know, words like play and stuff like that. And we are using a gray and white tile. I'm gonna slide this over here. And again, I know you won't be able to see it perfectly, but some different shades of gray that are what we're calling the field tile. That's the majority of what you see everywhere. And then some accents of red. Red is one of the hardest colors to get in tile because it's actually really expensive for whatever reason. So just when you do see this, we are working on getting a true red that's still within your budget. So just keep that in mind when you see it. Let me back this back up a little bit here. Oh, let me get to the floor while we're looking at it. We are using VCT vinyl composition tiles, the same as what you have in the elementary school currently. One thing that was noted on the flooring in these renderings is it doesn't look shiny. Of course, when you wax VCT, it does give a little bit of shine to it. So it is VCT, just so everyone sees that. Again, the kind of the whites, grays, we've got some black for the stage, and then that accent color of red.
George, can you also tell them about the idea for above the windows in those recessed
Sure.
areas?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I've got another drawing.
So is our back to the entrance?
You're looking back towards the entrance. I might have phrased that kind of funny, but so this down here, that's the entryway. Actually, you can kind of see the car through the glass out there. That'd be that front driveway. So if you walked in this door here, then we would see you walking in the door, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So all along what Carrie was talking about, this area up here, since this is a 2-volume space, this main corridor that runs through the building, we've got this signage and the colors down low, but up high above those, I'm switching to elevation view. So imagine I just cut a line right through the building. This 2-volume space is actually open right here. These little green things you see, that is actually a light fixture. I'll go back to this just to. That's these banner type light fixtures. So those aren't actually on the wall, just as a point of reference. But we've got a lot of space up here to put some type of graphic. And so what we talked about was some vinyl adhered wall graphics that show the history of West or the history of trains or anything along those lines. Anything historic or meaningful to the district or the school can be used on those places up there. And that will probably be something that evolves over time, even after the campus is done. We're using vinyl so they can be replaced.
We had talked about doing it in like a black and white or that sepia so that you see that graphic and it looks great up there, but that it's not too busy. You know, we wouldn't want it real bright color where it fights with everything at the bottom. And Mr. Truitt had talked about either the history of West or even the history of West ISD and having pictures of prior schools within the district. So those are just ideas he was kicking around.
Yeah, to give you a little preview.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead, George.
I would say to give you a little preview, this is in the media center where we've already got one, and this is just an idea. We'll look at it once we get into construction, but like Carrie was saying, something of that off-tone color that one looks historic, but also doesn't distract from the rest of the room. I will point out too, as I was looking at this on our interior elevation, so we updated the renderings first, but not these. This is down the entry of the gym. That will go to a red color also, not the yellow. That's one place that we got rid of some of those overly bright colors. So onto the dining room. Same on this one. We had a lot of colors on there, but decided to focus on the reds and blacks and whites, grays. And one thing you notice too is we've eliminated some of the train theme that we had. We kind of had it sort of throughout the school, but really it was just little hints of it. We really wanted to focus it on the media center and let the rest of the campus just be West ISD and West Elementary. And so this was actually something from the elementary admin, the slogan there, the Trojan Pride starts here, West Elementary School. And then we've added some pops of color throughout that weren't there before. So that is the dining.
It looks great, George. And board, jump in on, if you'll notice, we changed, imagine making sure you've caught that blue, yellow, and green in the middle of his board was prevalent in all these spaces he's shown you to date. And we wanted to go with traditional West ISD like we have at the high school. So if y'all have some feedback on where we're going with our color palette, we just really wanted the black and red and the Trojan and the history of West and West ISD with the graphics Carrie was mentioning to be a large part of the school. We want the kids to grow up knowing their Trojans and what our colors are, and those graphics you mentioned, you know, we can replace them often, and we can do the 5 defining moments in the history of our town, or we can do the past school pictures where elementary kids have been. We can do just scenes from across West ISD or West Elementary with kids and teachers and families enjoying whatever the event is. I mean, there's a lot of possibility there, and I just think it'll bring a lot of pride and even education pieces in Texas history and the history of our town. We saw a school that used it for learning pieces about the geography of Texas and science pieces, and you can do a lot with it. And there's a lot of those spaces around the campus where we can dream big about what we want to have go in those slots. I mean, I was envisioning the museum or even leagues. I know this is something she enjoys about having the time to look for those pictures and present them to us with some that we could select from and really get the community involved in helping us finding some pictures and things. And I think it'd be a fun way to get some of our community members that have been here for a lifetime to look through their pictures and ones we own, the ones museum has, and really bring some to us to consider. And it'd be a great way to unite everybody as we open the school. There's even a spot in the front office on a wall where we could put the current elementary if we want a picture of it on a graphic, or the school that was on the playground that was torn down, because we have some fabulous shots of that. So there's some great possibilities here to really showcase our history, which I think you'll all agree we're very proud of.
I, for one, like the fact that you've gone back to the school colors and eliminated. It won't be as dated long term when people could look and say, oh, that was built in 2020 or 2021. So yeah, I like that.
I like the red scheme too. That's great.
Yeah.
Carrie said that,
My
Larry, that we were afraid he was going to look some of those primary colors, and she used actually the same wording you did. So I'm glad y'all noticed that. Sorry, Lee, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you were talking. It's good. George, you said that we're getting a true red. Are you counting true red to be a blue red or an orange red? Because orange red has a tendency more to inflame anger than a blue red does.
We're getting as close to West ISD red as we can. Now, with that said, we're certainly considered the effect that colors have on people and children, especially within a school. And so in the classrooms in particular, there's a very, very minimal amount of red. It's actually this amount of tile on the floor here. It's probably even less than that, but if you can picture the entire classroom, this field white color, off-white, and then a little bit of stripe of gray and a little bit of stripe of red. And even as we looked at the cafeteria here, we considered, do we do a kind of a red overload or just some little accents? And this is what we settled on, which hopefully, as you see, is some accents. So, but with that said, in terms of the actual color, with that said, all of these materials, kind of like David said at the beginning, are a starting point. And as all the way up to the point that we're in construction, the contractor will submit materials, and we can review those as much as anyone in the school wants to make sure it's a good red.
My only other comment, David, is that having stuff up that high in an elementary school, I mean, kids are supposed to be looking forward, paying attention to their teachers. And so if we're going to use it for educational purposes, do we have a spot for, are we going to have a time for teachers to pull kids out in the hallway, sit, look up, learn from that? Because walking and looking is,
Absolutely. I mean, that would be part of the curriculum, and I believe grade 4 is local history, but it can be integrated at all levels. So they would be part of units of study. That's a good point. Ms. Costa, it sounded like you were going to talk.
Well, and it's also, I've seen it in a school before that I was in on whenever they were working on it. And it is up high, but because it's such a large image, you don't really have to like stop and stare up at it. You can see it from far away. It's almost like seeing a billboard whenever you're on the highway. It's pretty easy to see. And I do think it's going to depend on what we put there. If we want it to be History of West or History of West ISD, which avenue we go with that. But it's very beautiful because it adds something to that room, but it doesn't add busyness. I know that sounds crazy, but because it's a black and white or that sepia or however they choose it, it gives an extra element, but it's up high enough to where it also doesn't keep you from hanging kids' schoolwork, or it doesn't get damaged. Nothing ever happens to it. So I actually have photos of the campus that I worked on before whenever they did that, Ms. Crawshaw. I could send to you too for you to see.
that'd be great. That'd be great.
All right, I'm gonna jump over to the gym. This is the only one I think that we
George, I'm sorry.
Yep.
One more. Are the tables going to be that color? I mean, are we looking at brown inky tables, or are we looking at black
ours are
tables?
gray.
Or okay,
Ours are gray tops. That's just a rendering, but I can send you the ones we own, and that will add to.
No, that's okay. You don't have to send them to me. We're bringing tables over from the elementary school.
Half of them.
Okay.
Remember the Uncle Ben's competition that Adley Secora won for us? She furnished with her winnings half of the cafeteria with the new gray, which we'll bring over and we'll match.
Okay.
Other ones need to frankly go in the trash.
Okay, good.
Yep.
I'm glad you asked that. I meant to mention at the beginning, Lee, that all of the furniture, which furniture is just anything that's loose and can be moved around, will be school provided. And so, we have a placeholder. For that matter, we could have updated them to be gray to match what you've got. But yes, that's what David said.
George didn't take enough credit for that graphic either, because we asked him to put Trojan Pride starts here somewhere in the cafeteria, and he sent us 2 or 3 different graphics that they came up with that were amazing. And I love that whenever you walk into the cafeteria.
Yeah, and we may tweak it. And since we're talking about it, Carrie, one thing if you can see on this, we've got established, which we were going for the original elementary school. We have no idea what the year is. We put that as a placeholder. We need to all remember to someone sign that out so we don't end up with the wrong date on the wall. But we would like to do something like that to honor the history.
I got it. I can find it.
That'd be great. Okay, jumping over to the gym. Like I said, nothing changed on this one. When you do see the material board in action, though, we do have a sample of that floor. We've talked before. It's a rolled vinyl product. It's a wood look. I can even. So it's a wood look, even though it's a vinyl. But you'll see it has some cushion thickness to it, so it gives it a good gym floor that's low impact, has some resilience to it. But you'll be able to see that on the actual board. Is that one. And then jumping over to the media center, we already kind of touched on this.
Before you get off the gym, we go back real fast. Just as a reminder, board members, we left the primary colors in the gym because remember, Coach Knutson and Coach Becky will use the colors, the north, south, east, west directions, and the numbers to get kids grouped. And so it's another education element that if he says everybody go to the wall, with blue on it, they'll run to that end. So remember, that's why this one has the color. And since there's no windows in the gym, with the lighting, adding a little bit of color is really spices up this room. So just wanted to make sure you understood why there's still color in this one. I think it really pops and looks good.
That's a good reminder. And yeah, so these are the colors. And for that matter, I think we're down the blue, yellow, and green. The gym is the only place we have those paint colors. We might have a little touch here or there elsewhere, but this is really the only room that has those. Everybody good on that?
Looks great, George. Yep.
I love it. It's so much fun. I think the kids are going to love it.
Good. Over at the media centers, so y'all are just seeing the one you saw before plus this one. We've actually gone through a lot of iterations of this, and I think the one we landed on works really well. This is another place where we had a lot of color. We've reduced that down. Instead of just flooding it back with reds and grays, obviously we've got the actual materials. Now some of this may end up being some faux materials that will look realistic. And now there's a balance between being kind of cheesy, I don't know what you'd call it, like styrofoam painted stuff, and then there's the actual stick-on brick. We're trying to get more of the stick-on brick look, so it looks like a real train station and tunnel, actual stained wood pieces, to give it a more authentic feel. Same on the furniture. These are definitely placeholders. You will probably have much more bookshelves than this. We kind of clear them out for the rendering just so you can see the actual space. Another thing we changed on the train, going back to the MKT line, if you look in town, actually close to where this depot is, you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
You're doing great.
I think my battery's running low on my AirPods. So if I do, y'all wave at me or something. There's an actual, so the MKT line went through some changes in their color, but the green and yellow is more iconic for that line. So we've changed the color of that to match that. So when you go to this train station, there's 2 trains out there, but the one closer is that green and yellow. So we're mimicking that. One of the things, I'm going to come to the other side here. We had some train tracks coming out and through the media center. Those were kind of a red and yellow, which didn't make sense with the look. One, just of kind of mimicking train tracks, but also just the feel of the rest of the library. So we changed those to a black and gray, which on the color board, when you get it, all right, we'll just slide that over there. So this is the main color that matches what you have elsewhere in the school and in the district. The high school and middle school's got this same carpet. And then we've got a super dark gray, like a charcoal gray, and a medium gray that will be these train tracks down there.
George, this is just kind of a minor thing, but on the end of these bookshelves, are there any appliques that could make them look like box cars?
Oh, that's cool,
you probably-
Larry. That's a great idea.
Yeah, you probably could. They're just end panels. It's usually a like a molded plastic, but we could get them to do a flat surface, and then I'm sure you could apply a vinyl to it or something like that. Yeah, we'll make note of that and look into it. That'd be cool.
Something like what you've got across the room right there. See where the train is in the background, and some of those cars and down. Move your mouse down, and it's there
these guys right here.
behind the
On that back wall where it says computer center, we've talked about doing a graphic of an engine all along there. And we think that would look real sharp to find one from a period piece there. And I do want to point out, guys, that you'll notice the track used to run as a curve in a straight line, but we felt it was too busy. And so we had it stop, like the caboose that was on the track and had come out and is now going through the tunnel. So what are your thoughts on how we've done the carpet versus the way it used to run?
And I'll say too, we felt like it was a little busy, and we also worried about it locking you into furniture location because you weren't ever going to be able to move anything around on top of the tracks. So removing the tracks from the center kind of gives you more flexibility.
I like the way it looks like that. I think that's a nice rendering.
Great. Library. So I'd love to hear y'all's feedback, though. Make sure we're on the right track. And with the color pieces, I like the trim they've added up high. I love the tonal look. And I like how it has that history of West feature in this center. And it's just going to be a fabulous space for the kids. I mean, picture Deanna Mays in the tunnel. It has leveled seating so she can do book time and book studies with the kids in there. It's going to be fabulous.
I love more trust.
I looked on the screen.
We have a
did you hear what I
mark
said?
there to line up her entire.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Yeah, who is speaking? I'm sorry. I couldn't understand. Was that Lee?
I'm sorry. My screen got cut. I mean, again dropped. My service dropped me online. So what I said was, do we have? Oh, there it's coming back. Oh, love technology.
We're doing great. It's all right.
While she's getting that straightened out, David, I just want to let you know I appreciated your pun there when you asked if you wanted to make sure we're on the right track. I thought that was very well done.
It wasn't even planned. It's just they just come out now. It's just.
See, and I was focusing on the fact that we're not going to let a kid run around in the library with a balloon, but.
Seriously, why does that kid have a balloon, George?
That's right. Yeah.
We're trying to learn here, and he has a balloon over there.
Photoshop that out. We'll pop the balloon.
Okay.
That's
So my
Charles
question.
walking towards him to get the balloon right there.
So my question was, I'm sorry, do we have enough railroad ties on that track that if a teacher wanted to tell everybody in lineup, everybody get on a railroad tie? And Carrie can weigh into this.
Right. There were. We don't have enough. I don't think
it would be an easy way to do it.
I don't think they're like 22 black ones. We worried about if you went out too far, like kind of like we were saying before, the further you go out, the more you kind of lock in to that space always having to be empty. And we talked to George about this too. We know that we're going to need way more bookshelves than that. We're going to need, because this isn't really focused on the furniture, it's just the design. And so the more bookshelves we need, the less space we're gonna have for, like for railroad tracks. That will be clear, but
Okay.
if it went out too far, it could go further, but if it went out too far, it might affect that.
We'll look and see how many it would take and see how it looks. We'll look at that. We'll add it to the list.
Maybe we could make a rule that our class size max is a little smaller. And then we can have that.
I love that idea.
Yeah, a class size no bigger than the railroad tie, no bigger number than the number of railroad ties.
Exactly.
I think that'd be great.
Well, Carrie will shrink it then, so it'll be 5 ties. So, all right, back to George. George, save me.
Again, can y'all still hear me? I think I've officially lost one earbud, so again, y'all
We can hear
if
you.
Can't hear me. Okay, good deal. That is pretty much it. So we've made some other changes that you don't see necessarily in the renderings, and then I'm going to point out a couple of other, like I'm going to attempt to colors on the board for when you see it in person. I just have to carry this. Y'all hang on. Nope, that's not going to work. In the good grief. Hang on. Okay, we'll do this. Let's pick it up. In the bottom right-hand corner of the board, you see some of those other tiles. Places like the restroom where we've got floor tile, again, sticking with the whites and grays. That black one there is the stage curtain. This yellow and green, that are different than the other yellow and green. These are specifically for the MKT line. And then this darker finish is for everything that you see in the media center. The only other two that I haven't touched on just yet are this wood finish here that's the lighter color, and this is a solid surface piece plastic for anywhere that we have counters, lower cabinets, upper cabinets, and then countertops. So the classrooms, any teacher workrooms, admin office will be those colors there, just so when you see them, you know what those are. And then, like I mentioned, the tile there, and then some people may wonder what this is, just toilet partition colors. So other than that, I think that's all the major pieces of the board. If there's any questions, we'll be happy to go through anything else.
George, I didn't mean to interrupt. Since we've got some teachers on our Zoom tonight, do you have a rendering of a classroom just so they can see where we are and what we're bringing to them? As soon as we get the color board and the renderings, Carrie will hold some sessions. And so do you happen to have anything saved on your computer so the board can even see what you were saying about that red stripe and all that, so that'll make some sense and context?
And while he looks for that, we can talk too about going down the academic hallways. He did a great job of making sure, of course, it's the lighter color tile, but on one side of the hallway, there is going to be a gray stripe and the other side will be a red stripe tile so that they know to walk on the line. And that's just a good visual for them. And they did a great job in the design part of that, of having the two different colors, because all red, like Ms. Crawshaw said earlier, would have been way too much red. They helped with that. And then also in the academic hallways, having the dark gray, medium gray, light gray, it goes, I think it was like 5 feet up, which is a fabulous thing for kids when they put their hands all over the wall. And you're gonna be able to wipe it down. So it's a wipeable surface and it will never have to be repainted, which is great. While he's looking.
Okay.
Got it.
I think I'm sharing my whole, like everything now. Y'all see a basic partial floor plan with reds and grays on it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good deal. So this is, that's actually the admin area. Let me pull up. So this is the media center here with that gray carpet, and there's the train tracks coming out. This much of it right there is within the reading pit, and these are the ones coming out. So we'll revisit that if we need to come out further with it. What Carrie was saying is the gray and red stripes going down through the corridors that the students can line up on if the teacher wants to have them, continue down one line or another. In the classrooms, I'll show you a couple views of this, but a typical classroom, mostly that white tile in the center, and then a gray stripe over at the cabinets and a red on the teaching wall. And I do also have some, we looked at these a while back, but, and there's a typical for different types, for different grade levels and then different learning activities, but that's a typical classroom setup with the floor, what it looks like.
Everyone's going to want the one with that gigantic closet. Since I saw Misty cook on our Zoom, that thing would hold like 50 Christmas trees.
Yes, I guess this one is the art classroom. So yes, not every classroom has a jumbo storage, but the art folks do.
That's great. And for our teachers on the Zoom, that's not our furniture choices. That's just some visualization that George has put in the drawings. Still much to be discussed about furniture. We frankly haven't started that process and need major input. So don't think that's the desks and chairs. We can do something like that, but we definitely want input on that.
And like he said earlier, the countertops in the classrooms, they all changed to gray. It's a solid surface. It was white in the beginning, but like in that photo right there, but we worried about white countertops. So it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, this isn't going to come through, but you can see it's gray and has some speckle to it, which there's actually a few grays that we can choose from. So once everyone, Carrie, I don't even think you've seen this one in person. So once everyone has a chance to look at it, we can certainly revisit it if we need to.
George, one of y'all share about the hallway and how you can, it's going to be structured for putting work, including that tackable wall there. But we redesigned the hallway, guys, not just with the colors, because you can see like that yellow and stuff is different, but Carrie, do you want?
Sure. If you go down the academic hallways, you can see, oh, it was on that one, I think. I believe it was 5 feet up. Is that correct, George? Is the tile.
3, 4, 5.
And then above that is a tackable surface that they can staple onto. And we loved that. We saw that on another campus because that puts the kids' schoolwork up high so that when kids are walking down the hall, they're not grabbing it and touching and pulling other people's stuff down. And it keeps the hallway a little bit cleaner. So anything they are touching, like we said before, can be wiped down and not have to be painted. Is that tackable service on the board, George, or no? I couldn't remember. The tackable surface that y'all are gonna put on there, is that on the board or is that typically on a board?
It's not. We could certainly add it to it though. There are a few color options. It's essentially it's a vinyl surface, but you apply it like wallpaper. So yeah, it's just a thin sheet of fabric. But yeah, we could. I think I can get some samples and get that added to the board because there are some color options with that too. That'll obviously, go with an off-white so it looks just like a wall, or even if you want a light gray or anything like that, they've got those options.
Board members, since we're in the beginning phases of all this, is there something y'all would like him to show you from the plans? I know this is hard on Zoom, but George, you're doing a good job. We just are starting the process. Wanted to show you where we are with some things since we've slowed down a little bit and then doing Zoom meetings. We wanted George to come in person, but this is what we can do right now.
That's fine. I think it's very nice. Good job.
Well, the minute I get the color board and I have the construction huge, what would you call it? What's that called, George, that you gave me, the drawings, but whatever that huge document is.
Just a set of drawings, yeah.
I've got that on my office desk. Carrie has one for the staff that's online. So we've got renderings like he showed that I can print out on our color copier for you to see. So love for you to come by, and you can borrow the drawings if you want to look through them and give us some feedback. But we're in that stage now where we need to let George know any things we'd like to see changed or added. So that's really where we are in the process right now as we move into school, starting in August. We're going to have a session, the back to school week, with all the staff to share all this information. And between now and then, Carrie will make it available. And like I said, I have mine as well for folks to come and look at and leave Post-its and comment on and things.
All of you have done a good job. I love the colors. Everything looks really sharp. Well done.
Yep, looks real nice.
I think the elementary admin gets a lot of credit for that, because yeah, like David said when we started off, we had a nice long meeting and we pulled out the color fans and the carpet books and just about everything, and they went through it thoroughly. I hope they enjoyed the process. I think they did. But yeah, you see the result of all their effort there. So
I think George is being kind. What he didn't want to say is, Carrie, you know, at the start where he showed you the brick color for the exterior, that's the only thing Mrs. Cosda didn't pull off and change. Everything else changed.
I left the red, the red and the gray.
Right. But yeah, everything else got changed. Fortunately, there was Velcro on the back of those samples, so George was just able to pull them right off. So.
That's right.
But we have told George a million times that we bet he's an amazing husband, because he'll sit in a room with like 10 women that are all telling him something different, and somehow he gets everybody to agree and does a great job.
I was just gonna say that I'm not allowed to pick out colors in my house, so everything's looking good as far as I'm. That's why I've been so quiet.
That's good. I especially like the green and yellow train, and so proud that it's not maroon or burnt orange.
Whoa! Can we go back to the library again?
We
need to revisit that again.
Yeah. No, go back to not sharing your color opinions, Jason.
Yeah, I think a maroon train would look really nice right there.
There are none. Nice try. Green and gold forever in West Elementary, leaving our mark. Sicko.
We'll call that John Deere.
Oh, that'll work.
It kind of is, yeah. That's true. That's an ag reference. Good.
Good compromise.
Well, thanks, George. We appreciate your attendance. You did a great job. We really enjoy working with you.
Us too. It's a good team.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much.
Thanks, y'all.
See you, buddy.
All right. That brings us to agenda item number 9, which is report on the 2021 West ISD COVID-19 school start plan, Texas Education Agency's TEA response, public health guidelines, and attendance and enrollment FAQs. And Mr. Truitt's going to present that to us.
I'm going to combo items 9 and 10, if that's okay.
Good.
That we have guidance from the state that's hot off the press. Originally, when I posted this just on Friday, we obviously didn't have it. So I think it'd be easier to go through one slideshow that combos 9 and 10 and really give you all a chance to answer questions. We've created a document that looks like this, and you can see the watermarks as draft, and we're already on page 31. So it's quite a document. And it's still in draft form, obviously, but it's still an ongoing, ever-changing document as we meet with teachers. We met with high school this morning and elementary tomorrow, and we're going to schedule some parent meetings for next week just to get feedback. Amanda's piece about the remote instruction is still being added to this document. So think of it as one-stop shopping for our calendar, the arrival to dismissal plan for all campuses, our hygiene and safe and healthy school plan, and the remote instruction plan. So we're putting it all in here, and we'll post it and send it to the masses so our staff, students, and parents and community can see what we're planning for August to help keep their students safe. And the TEA keeps saying we've got to call this a public notice document. So you can see I added that on the front because we actually have to turn this in and post this information to our community and parents. So I just threw this together. Like I said, we just had the webinar yesterday at 3 o'clock. And so this has literally had to be put together in 24 hours. The great news is the plan I already had in place from working with the principals and a task force was at the level or greater than what Morass shared yesterday. So we're already on the right track, and I've learned from our staff in particular, especially in today's meeting, and I'll probably hear the same thing in the morning, our staff has genuine concerns about their safety. And so when we talk about the level at which we're going to implement our health plan, we want it at the highest level possible. And I think we can meet that goal. And every feedback piece I've received to date, whether from the parent survey or a staff email that went out for feedback, I haven't read anything that we can't do. And that's a good starting point for going into the start of school. I wanted to share with you where we are some documents because they're all new. You can see the new public health planning guidance document came out yesterday. The attendance and enrollment FAQ was updated greatly, and that came out yesterday. And I put this third document in here because this is the one that's defining our work, the asynchronous plan for remote instruction, because there's also a synchronous, and Amanda's going to explain the differences when she takes over when I'm done with my part, and explain why we're going with this one and what it is. And so this is our big plan for that part of the packet. The West ISD COVID-19 response plan is what I was talking about in regards to this document that we'll use for the start of school. I'm going to talk a lot about our calendar, and that's even in your packet if you want to go ahead and turn to that document. And then we're awaiting greatly the UIL piece. I emailed you today the update about the 13th for strength and conditioning and marching band and the things the kids have to do with social distancing and masks as we try to reopen our UIL pieces beginning on the 13th. So that email just had a little bit of information, and I know we'll hear much more from the UIL about cross-country, football and volleyball in particular as we get closer to the start of school. If you think about those sports, I mean, volleyball is usually an end of July event, so we're not far off from when they usually start meeting, and they're usually playing tournaments the first week in August before school starts, when football and cross country and marching band are back in action. So we're not far off of those dates, and we need to know what we're doing so we can share it with our students and staff and families. The next slide centers on our plan goals. And I put these for TEA on there because they're talking a lot in their document about being preventive, responsive, and making sure we're putting in mitigating practices. And so everything in their plan is based on those three things: preventing the virus from entering the school, and then how we respond if we have a confirmed case, and then what can we do to reduce the likely spread of it within the school. So you have to remember when Morath put this plan out, that is what it's about. So if you had time to read the document, and even as we break it down, they always go back to those three goals. All right. And so everything they're doing in there is about those three things. And then of course I added, we're going to do everything we can to keep our students, staff, parents, and community safe, but also striving to ensure our students have a fabulous and successful school year. It's easy to read these things, whether you're a staff member, a student, or a parent, and think that, oh wow, how is school going to begin on August 17th with all these different things in place? Well, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it with a lot of enthusiasm. We're going to do it with a lot of fidelity because we're going to make sure, and that's our slogan for the year, that we're all in this together to make sure we have the best year we can possibly have. And it doesn't matter if we're doing remote learning and have to close down school for a time, or if we're going full blown on campus, we're going to do everything we can rock whichever possibility is before us. On our Q&A planning sessions, the parent online survey went out, and I have the data on the next slide. I called it a staff email. I wanted to make sure our staff had a chance to give me feedback, some question stems, and then ask me any question that was on their mind. And I chose email, which might be unusual not to do a survey, but I wanted them to be able to respond directly to me so that I could respond to them if I had questions or needed clarifications. What it turned into is I was able to answer a lot of questions, and I've already received over 50 responses, so it's been very helpful. And I'm tracking their questions on a new FAQ along with the parent ones and trying to provide answers that I'll send out by this Friday. Again, we met with the high school team leads today, and we're doing the same with the elementary tomorrow. And next week, we're going to have to schedule a course online doing Zooms. All these are Zooms. We're going to give a Zoom link out for students, parents, and staff to hear our plan and to ask us questions. So if a staff member didn't attend the meeting today or the one tomorrow, it'll be open to anybody to come online and hear and submit through chat if they want to, or email if they don't want to share it out on the Zoom, or we're going to take Q&A on Zoom. I mentioned earlier about some West News pieces for the West Elementary. It's perfect timing for an article for next week in the paper about our opening plan. I want to get the FAQ in the paper too, if Larry Knopic will allow me, like we did during bond time. Definitely will post it and send it out through School Messenger. Social media is critical. I'm going to do some YouTube videos with the principals where Carrie and Chuck can explain arrival through dismissal, what a typical day will look like on their campus if the family chooses on-campus learning. And then our website's being updated with all this information is paramount. Regarding our survey, you can see that we had 679 responses, and for a survey, that's pretty good for us. If you think about our number of kids in the district, it's a little more than half. You can see 606 said, yes, we're returning to school. We want to be on campus. We're ready to roll. And then you can see 71 said, no, we'd like to hear and consider and do your remote learning plan. And then you can see that 2 said, no, we're moving, because we asked that question if they were coming back or not. So we've got 2 leaving the district that responded. On the remote instruction data of those 71, you can see the breakdown by grade level. And this is current. I've already shared some incorrect information with some teachers. I need to go back and update because Amanda gave me the more up-to-date figures, and I was able to add them up. And you can see that the largest concentration of the online instruction as far as the consideration by the families are at the elementary, followed by middle school, and then followed by high school, the middle school. Now, I want you to keep in mind that they didn't have to commit to anything. They didn't even know what we were doing, except to say, are you feeling comfortable with coming to school or not? And if not, then we're going to have a remote learning plan for you. We're going to offer both. We want you to be with us, and we've got 2 plans. And if you think about the remote, it could even become on campus, and on campus can become remote. So it's fluid. And we'll explain how that looks here in a moment on another slide. But just saying that, this is who's responded, because our drop dead decision time is really any point in the school year, if you think about it. We'll have some parents, in my opinion, between now and school starting that will change their mind as they hear the plan. They'll either come off the no list or go to the no list based on what we're thinking as far as our safe return to school plan. We need to make sure we understand that these numbers are not, again, what's going to be remote when that time comes. We have some families that think that our remote learning plan will look like it did last March through May, and it won't. It will be more rigorous. It'll mirror the instruction day and what's being taught on campus. It will be more challenging. And we're even going to have conversations with the families to make sure they understand our goals. Not only do you have to have connectivity and devices, which we of course can help with devices. We learned we couldn't help with every connectivity issue, because even if I bought them a hotspot or paid for their hotspot bill, their connectivity piece, where some of our kids live in our attendance zone out in the rural areas, it doesn't matter what we provided, they couldn't connect to the internet. So even buying a hotspot for them was not an option. The option was we had to bring them to a place in town that could connect to the internet. But the main one that Amanda will talk a lot about is they must have an at-home learning coach, is the word we're using. Someone at home, whether it's a parent, a guardian, a grandparent, whomever, meaning the child being at home alone and working through what we have planned needs adult assistance. And we want to make sure our families understand, for this to be successful and for their kids to leave the remote learning plan on grade level, that we need those things to happen. So I feel there's a counseling and an expectation piece that we need to make sure we explain if they're going to choose this option. And of course, in the end, they can still choose and say, hey, I don't care if you think we need a learning coach, and hey, we're going to do it on our phone. You know, where at least we tried and made sure they understood that we're just trying to help their family and have this a successful process.
And the questionnaire, I'm sorry, David, and the questionnaire went out before there was any guidance from TEA also, right, about what it's going to look like in the classroom.
Well, we had that other document that, remember, I've described as someone got in trouble with TEA that posted something that they shouldn't have. So we did have that. And Amanda did describe in a little bit of detail what an asynchronous and hybrid and synchronous could look like, but detail was not in it. You're correct. That comes next with the commitment phase. We were just trying to get some feedback of where people were and what they were comfortable with.
And I have a question about the pre-K. Do you think that, did we get pre-K responses, or is that zero because maybe pre-K parents aren't aware about the responding or the survey?
It's both. You know, the only pre-K families that would have responded were families that had other siblings in our schools, because we don't know who they are yet. They're new enrollees.
Right.
And that doesn't happen until July 13th. So obviously that's our, and you'll see that on the next slide that's coming up here soon, that's our target date, which is Monday, by the way, to make sure everyone understands what on-campus and remote instruction looks like. What are you considering? Is it's going to be the first question they have to check off, or information, excuse me, they have to provide us if they're a returning or new student in Skyward. And that's when we'll get a better feel for where we are with this. But the St. Mary's kids that we're getting all of them this year from grade 8 to 9. They're not in this data. So it's imperfect, but again, we're just trying to get some basic information. All right. All right, some new understandings. The Morat document that was different from the one where the person probably got in trouble or fired for posting the new learnings, I put into 2 slides here so you could see. Some of it was surprising and some of it wasn't. The first bullet point just talks about that we must, if y'all get asked, we must do on campus and we must do virtual. Family wants to do virtual, they can do virtual. If a family gets tired of virtual and wants to come back to on-campus, they can at the end of a grading period. At any point in the year, if an on-campus family wants to become virtual, they can the very next day. So we have to be on top of this and providing virtual instruction on a daily basis, starting on the first day of school for pre-K-12, because at any time we could have more folks than what you just saw on that previous slide choose it. We could have some families try on campus for a week and then say, hey, that's not for us, we want to switch, and vice versa. So we've got to be ready, but we must offer both. All right, we cannot say no to virtual and we can't go all virtual. So we have to provide both, and we've got to provide it as the TEA defines at the same level virtually as it would be in person on campus. So that is our challenge, and that is a big bar to meet, but we're going to meet it. If you look at the second bullet point, this one was a surprise, and I've learned it came from Clint ISD, where they were starting the year with a plan of everybody having to be on virtual instruction for the first 3 weeks as a phase-in. It gives everybody a chance to get the virtual piece going and kind of slow start the school. But then we found out from Morat that if the parents still wanted to send their kids to in-person instruction, they could. So it's like we were going to run both programs anyway. And so that was an option on the table that we've discussed and right now are not considering because it's going to happen on the first day no matter what, or we have to do on campus or virtual. So might as well get it going and getting our kids used to school and seeing where we are with our plan. So that one was a surprise. The next one on the screenings, this one was a surprise too. I thought for sure that we would have temperature checks, the screenings would be required, and if you'll notice, this bullet point says self-screening, and there's even a section in the document where they don't recommend taking the temperatures, give some medical reasons why. I'll tell you that in our feedback, the temperature checks and the screenings are a must for the staff and parents that have responded and even don't want it done just weekly, they want it done daily. And so we've been trying to figure out how we can accomplish that goal, and there's the technology piece that Charles has figured out for us. We even had Nurse Debola come up today and work through it with us, and we've got some ideas on how we can make that happen, because it doesn't just happen in the mornings at entry on the campuses. If you think about it, it starts at the bus stop, even for the bus riders. Why would we let someone on the bus if they can't answer, if they answer yes, to one of the screening questions or have a temperature over 100? And so we've really got to think through how we can make this work at the bus stops and when they arrive at campus, no matter what time they get there. And that one sounds daunting, but we're going to meet that goal. It's important, especially to our staff, that we know anyone entering the building, do they have a fever, or are they saying yes to the 10 symptoms, or the 2 questions about have you been around someone with COVID or in a place where COVID is a high occurrence. And so if any of those are yeses, our plan goes into place. On the next one, or that last one talked about quarantine, and I'll talk about that because the plan for quarantine is even different. The whole 14-day, there's a 10 and 3 that I've got on another slide that I'll go over here in a moment. The big one on that I've heard is definitely from staff as well. Worried about sick leave and days and pay and FMLA, and so I have that in a slide later on. The next one's about closing off and cleaning heavily used area about when there's tests that are positive. I have a slide to go over that with some detail right now. That one we're still thinking through. The thing about the governor's order was a surprise. We hadn't heard that masks were going to be required, and then they made sure we knew that whatever the governor's order was, we would go with that. Well, the governor's order right now is age 10 and above. In talking with Mrs. Kaza, the problem with that age is it means some 4th graders would wear masks and others wouldn't. So our plan says grade 4 and above. And if the governor's order changes, we still have masks in the West ISD plan. We have them for arrival and dismissal. We have them for transitions. We have them for meetings or congregations or places in the building where we can't social distance. And we have it if a staff member or student requests it because of insert reason here. We're going to review it and figure out how we can meet that need. But right now, the governor's order is the rule of house on this, and we're rolling with masks. And as I told you earlier, the UIL even has that in their July 13th plan. The big one we get asked about 6 feet apart, it just says should. It's not a requirement for the social distancing of the desks. That one was going to be challenging for us anyway, especially at the elementary. We have some plans we're working through, removing some furniture, looking at class sizes, spaces, pre-K-12. But our challenge there, guys, is I'm going to be frank, I can't fix the elementary and its overcrowding and the size of the classrooms. As you know, we've added 2 portables, so that will be coming this month. Now I'm so grateful we even have that to free up some space if we need it. But Carrie's been working extremely hard on the schedule to mitigate that the best we can. And so the elementary plan may look different than Mr. Clander's plan because he has room and Mrs. Kozik does not. And so we've got to work through that to support our staff in particular with those learning and social distancing challenges. Reduce in-staff meetings. that one's really about social distancing and masks, but also the recommendation of doing a lot virtually throughout the year. If Mr. Klander needs to have a faculty meeting, then do it on Zoom. If we need a booster club meeting, do it on Google Hangout. If we need to do an assembly, let's do it over the PA or a video announcement type thing, or let's record it and put it on YouTube Live. Let's just do everything we can to stop the in-person in large groups. So we've even figured out, for example, in conference rooms, how many people can fit in them for social distancing purposes. And so we've got all that information. Mrs. Cosda has a new conference room area that will help them. If she needs something more, she's even talking, for example, about her in-service week being in the gym where they can space out tables. Mr. Klander's looking for space. Obviously, he has the auditorium at his disposal, but looking at other things in the campus, if they need to have an art or something like that, that they can't do virtually, which will always be the first goal. On our scholastic calendar, if everybody's on that page, I know you'll remember that you've already approved a calendar for next year. And then last month, I brought you a plan that had some tweaks to it. Remember with the blue days, that we were trying to ensure that we had the goal of 20 banked days for the new school year. So everything we did in that calendar, every decision was about how can we get the 20 days. So in case we have to close school, we don't have to go until August 1st for school or something along those lines. Well, 2 weeks ago after that meeting, the commissioner said that if we can have remote learning going, if we have a school stoppage, then it will count as an instructional day. So that decision was a total game changer because now we don't have to bank all those days if we've got a remote learning plan going. And so we totally rethought the calendar I'd already shown you and have been looking at a draft version of the one that I provided you in your packet so that you could see some of our new ideas that are geared towards what you see on this slide. So the goals shifted from how can we get the kids back to school early and bank 20 days to what you see here. And I'd like to go over these goal statements and I'd like to take you through the calendar month by month so you can see where we are. First and foremost, you can see in that SY, of course, that means school year. So all school year 2021 instructional minutes and planning ideas came all about this. Mine's blocked. I apologize, guys. Let me move it. Oops, I went too far. All the ideas are on the table. And then the this built-in piece of a second conference period became our defining goal in this calendar. I don't think I need to remind any of you that our calendar is based on instructional minutes and only we talk about 187 days when a teacher contract comes into play and that we must have that number of days in the calendar. Hold on one second, guys. We lost Holly Willis. Her little thing just came up. All right, I just clicked on her. Sorry, we lost her. I just want to make sure she got back in. Sorry, I had to yell through the door to Miss Adams, who's out there hosting our meeting. Thank you, Miss Adams. So this built-in second conference period became the goal. So let me explain that because it has a lot to that bullet point. If you think about our staff and what we're asking of them versus the March through May versus this August plan of in-person or what they're calling on-campus instruction and remote instruction, what we're asking them to do is, in essence, run two learning platforms, two learning plans, two instructional plans. The March to May one was challenging enough, frankly, in trying to meet the needs of our kids just on the remote end. But now the TEA is asking our teachers to do both. So you're going to have the kids in your class, but you've got some kids on remote learning plans as well. And the challenge for us is it might be easy to say, well, let's find a teacher or two in the district and just assign them to be these online instructors. Well, you get into problems there because of certifications and knowledge of the content and ability to plan and teach multiple grade levels and multiple content areas. But then the biggest challenge you have is at any point if school gets shut down, every teacher has to go to remote learning for their kids. And so why not have this already ongoing so we can do it in a 24-hour turnaround and to make sure that we're ready to go with instruction for all kids. It's given Carrie and Chuck some things that they got to look at about leveling classes and looking at the needs of the kids with who's choosing the remote learning. We don't want to have a class with 25 in it at grade 1 and then one with 12 because all those kids chose remote learning. I mean, there's some things we need to do even with the schedule. But if you think about everything I just said, that's a lot of work. So we're asking the teachers to teach in the day, and then what they do in that day, they post and then have for the next day for the remote learning kids. So they're going to have to video portions of their lesson. They're going to have to post the activities, any resources and links, and answer email or phone call or Google Hangout. So we were asking them to do that and teach a load. And so when were they going to get that done? A lot of times you'd say, well, conference period. Well, no, there's ARDs, there's 504 meetings. They've got to meet with a parent virtually. Maybe we're taking it for a PLT time where they're meeting with Mrs. Cosda. You name it, it doesn't always work out where they have that time. So that means they're going to start it after dismissal at 4 o'clock, or is Ms. Cosda, if she was a teacher at the elementary, is she going to do it at 8:13 at night? And so we tried to figure out a calendar with the ability to have a built-in conference period just for remote learning. And so we looked at our instructional minutes, and that's what you can see in the next couple of slides there, or bullet points, excuse me. And we looked at our instructional days. We looked at the length of our day, which is, you've heard me say, is one of the largest, if not the largest in Region 12. And we looked at how we could peel back some minutes to help with 2021, this school year, and meeting the needs that TEA has thrown at us in the last 24 hours. So you can see up here that this second conference period was the goal to give our teachers not 1, but 2 times in the day before they leave to have time to work and plan and run copies and post videos or whatever they need to do. This time is at the end of the day. And so our start times, if you remember in the June calendar, we were looking at moving them earlier in the morning. We had some feedback that thought that was great, and some thought it was too early, and what can we do? And our idea right now that we're getting feedback on is having the school day stop early. And so elementary time would shift from 7:45 to 3:30 to 7:45 to 3. And secondary would shift from 8 to 3:45 to 8 to 3:15. And so the work day, unfortunately, is going to be challenging because of the COVID planning of a 7:15 to 4 framework for kids' arrival and kids being dismissed. But we think we've got a good plan for how we can help our staff and students with polls from instruction for the last 5 months, intervention planning, kids that may need reading or math help, dyslexia, ESL, you name it. We've got a place now to plug it in and give our teachers remote learning planning time. And if you'll notice, I've underlined, it even means that we're looking at a late bus run. We haven't done that since I've been in West, but we've talked about a lot that our kids won't stay for tutoring or help if they don't have a way to get home, if they have to stay and a parent can't come and get them. And so Mr. Mailer in transportation is working on a plan for that. And so picture with me the school day ending at 3 at the elementary, 3:15 at secondary, and then all the things that will happen. If a teacher has a student in remote learning, they're planning, maybe they're Google hanging out, I'm gonna make that a verb. Maybe they're posting, maybe they're doing a phone call or texting with them. So that can happen, and the teacher doesn't have to do it after school or at night. Or maybe we have a reading group that's meeting because this teacher doesn't have anybody in remote learning. Or maybe there's some tutoring that needs to be done, or a makeup test that needs to be taken. You name it, we can offer it in that time period. And this is something we've been asked about a lot, is how can we make that a part of the school day and still provide transportation? So we're gonna try that. You can see on bullet point 3 that we're even looking at a robust after-school program. It does mean that we would get in the business of organizing and offering after-school programming that's more academic-based. I love the YMCA. They're great people, but their program is not what we want in West from an instructional and even recreational standpoint. And so we want to get in the business of scheduling something for families that we think can more meet their needs. If we can't pull it together, we still have the YMCA as an option, but they're going to need to meet with Mrs. Cosda and me about expectations for the program, specifically who's running it and working it for West ISD. On that next bullet point, this is huge that we've stretched our calendar in a way we haven't stretched it in quite a long time. Just since I've been here, the max number of instructional days on the calendar has been 169. This calendar in your packet has 178 days of instruction with kids. And so just 9 more instructional days, think about that. That's almost 2 more weeks of instruction, which is a must in the calendar. And then you may be saying, Trude, what about some bank days? Well, we can have 7 with this plan. With moving school start date to the 17th, with our minutes, and then a waiver from the state for 2 PD days of 2,100 minutes, we can get the 7 days if we need them. Now remember, that doesn't mean we get out 7 days earlier. It means they're there to use when needed, because remember the 187-day rule for contracts. So keep that in mind when we say that. That's about missed instruction of kids. STAR test is still going. You've probably seen some of the online posts about that. People that can't believe that we're short money and boy, it'd be nice to have more teachers and all this, but the state's still going forward with their STAR testing and all the millions it takes to give that, and state accountability. We don't know what it's going to look like. But with that in mind, we've got to have the most robust plan we can, especially with the March through May plan as we move forward. And then summer programming was important to us to still have that June piece to meet the needs of some of our learners that need that for promotion or intervention. So looking at the calendar, I want to make sure you guys know the differences from the June. Start date is still, our recommendation is August 17th. We want to get going on Monday of that week and not Wednesday. So the only action item I'm asking you to do tonight is to approve this Monday start. We've got to let our staff and families know that it's not Wednesday the 19th. And most of them, some of them have seen the previous calendar, so that date was on there, but just in case, we've got to get this planned and approved. September doesn't change, but October does. Our October break is no longer on the calendar. We did do a half-day early release on that Friday the 16th at the end of grading period 1. So that teachers could get in grades, so that meetings could be had, training, work time, whatever we need to do that day. We were able to keep the 5 days at Thanksgiving. Christmas didn't change, but in January, the 5th is now an instructional day, but we're able to keep the 4th for a work day and things for the teachers. And feedback I received about MLK and President's Day going off the calendar and not having a holiday the long time till March, you can see they're back on the calendar for students and staff to breathe and get through that time. March looks different because the red days are gone. The last day of the third 9 weeks is that Friday the 5th, and it's now an early release day. To get grades in and things. And then that Monday, the 15th is a school day. And then you can see April didn't change and May did change with the STAR testing windows and making sure we have the 187 days. We took the red days off of May and made them instructional days, making sure we had the 2.5 days there with early release, really for the secondary exam piece there. And so we have a new ending date with the possibility of having graduation on that Friday or Saturday of that week. And so that's the big pieces of this. So this calendar accomplishes all 7 bullet points on this slide. We bank days, we have the instructional days leading in the STAR, We increased the instructional days by 9. We've looked at the length of our instructional days. We can still have summer programming. We've got our built-in second conference period to support our staff, which also leads to intervention and tutoring and a late bus run. And as you can see, we really thought outside the bus on, or sorry, I said bus, outside the box on this one. I know we're going to have all kinds of, on a spectrum of concern with the new ending date. I know families might say back, what do you mean I have to pick them up at 3? I can't get there. Well, it's okay. Yeah, we've got bus service. And we even have a late bus if their child needs to stay. We get asked a lot about tutoring and intervention time and makeup tests. And so I know we'll have some families excited about that. So we'll have that in. That's like, whoa, that's earlier. What am I going to do to get my child? Then we'll have the other end. They're like, it's such a long school day. This COVID year is going to be tiring and stressful. Thank you for shortening the day, even if it's only for a year. So I know we're going to have both ends of the spectrum. I know we'll have teachers that are like, oh, we're going to lose those minutes. They were crucial. I want to make sure you know that Chuck already has made a calendar, or excuse me, a schedule that the classes only go from 50 minutes to 47. So that's not a big change. Carrie's already figured out her content time for the core and has worked out a beautiful electives and lunch schedule like we've never had at the elementary. And so we're already planning all the pieces to make sure we can answer those questions. And so this is an outside the box calendar, but for 2021, we've got to have built-in time for our teachers to plan and post. And it also gives us the intervention and tutoring time that our kids desperately need as well. I want to make sure y'all know that every staff member, it's not like they leave at 3. We have still contract time in there, and our expectations are still that for whatever kids are on campus or even assigned or required, whatever word you want to use, we'll be working with kids. All right, so if you've got remote learning going on with kids, you're doing that. But then we may have specials or aides or even some core teachers that don't have anyone. They're going to be working with kids. And so I'm excited about the possibilities of this calendar, but it's going to take some thinking of the benefits of it by all stakeholders. So that was a lot. I'm going to drink some Diet Coke. Hold on.
David, while you do that,
Yes.
2 questions.
Lay it on me.
Well, first, I love that we've got a second conference period for the teachers because it's going to be long and hard, and online can be almost harder than in person because you can't directly help the kid by turning a page or getting to the paper or setting up manipulatives for them and stuff like that. So I love that we've got another period for them to do that. The after school thing, is that going to, in your thought processes, is that a sign up? So it's only going to be X kids that parents are doing these kids all the time? Or is it going to be my child needs help today, so they're going to stay after school? They're not getting this one content area, and so for this week they're going to be able to stay. How is that going to look?
My answer right now is both. Some will be required and some will be invitational or based on need at the time. So my answer for that would be both, Ms. Crawshaw. We need to offer both sets of things that you just described.
So you're saying both in terms of it's going to be a tutorial time where teachers are asking kids to stay, and it's going to be an after school take care of the child until the parent can get their traditional kind of format, but with a more educational supportive focus.
Well, no, maybe it's the way you worded that that's got me twisting my face a little. We don't want to run that time as a daycare because we'll have after school programming. The part with the teachers is about tutoring and intervention. And
so we will have the regular after school with the Y going on where they're just kind of keeping the kids here until, okay. Well, yeah. So the traditional keep the kids until parents can get here program that the parents sign up for, and those same kids are there after school. So that's one component. And then the other component is the additional support and help, right?
Yes, and we'll run buses at 3 and 4 was the way to think about it. So, or whatever time it takes for Kevin to get them back. So yes, I mean, that's part we're still working out the schedule, but yes.
Okay.
So a parent has
And
an option. Go ahead.
Is this also a pay to attend situation, or?
That's what I was getting at.
Not our part, but the YMCA type program, Holly, yes, it would be.
Okay, because if you're requiring them to come for extra help, obviously we couldn't charge them for that if it's a requirement. But those who are there willingly in order to have childcare after school would pay, correct?
Right, just like they do now if they need to stay from 4 to 6 with the Y,
Right.
or time the parent comes and gets them.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. My second question is clearly teachers look at this calendar, or staff looks at the calendar and they vote. Is there not any way to get the October 16th a full day without kids and push back the May end date to the 27th? So that, because that's a long haul from September through the end of November. And that's the only month that doesn't have a break, even though it would be a work day on campus, at least potentially a work day on campus if we can't give the teachers that day also, but it still gives a little space for breathing.
It's an easy switch. Here are the options. You could add it, like you said, to May 27th because you have to trade a day for it.
Right.
Or you could look at MLK or Presidents. So those are really your 3 options, but yes. That could easily be added. And I get what you're saying. Going from Labor Day to Thanksgiving without a break is tough. Yeah. I don't.
And it's going to be a tough year. It's going to be a tough year. Mentally, physically, lots of new things going on. I think it's worth considering.
We will look at that with a team group in the morning. I've got a captive audience. We can brainstorm with that, and I can send something out to get some feedback. And like you said, it's really a trade of an October date for a May date is probably the easiest way to go.
Yeah.
Mr. Truitt, can I?
We can look at that.
A teacher that's on right now watching asked a really good question that I wanted to kind of shoot out there so that other people can maybe hear the answer to. But she was asking, that second conference period technically is after the school day. So what are they going to do with their personal children? And so I'm envisioning that would mean if you're a staff member that's still on contract but that isn't tutoring and doesn't have a classroom or virtual kiddos to check on, you might be assigned the staff kiddos to help take care of. Is that correct? Okay.
I know every one of those situations, Ms. Cosder, are unique because the staff member may want their kids in their classroom while they're working on remote stuff, working on their homework. So it just depends on the situation. But we definitely would have something in place because learning is still going on. It's technically an extension of the day. Is the way to look at it. So we would have to look at that, yes. Calendar questions, board members, that was a lot. But again, the goal, how can we build in time and everything else you see up there? And this is what we've come up with to date. And the reason you're not approving this tonight is, remember, we didn't have commissioners' guidelines when I had the post. So I wasn't comfortable having this totally ready for tonight. So you're going to hear me talk about a special called meeting in 3 weeks in July, the 3rd week in July, excuse me. And when we can have the calendar on there after we've had a chance to make sure this is still what we want to do in order to meet these 7 goals. So again, tonight, all you're looking at is the start date, which we know whatever version we want to get going on school.
Many pieces of this puzzle, David. I know it's a lot of hard work with a lot of variables and unknowns. Do you have anything else for us before I call for the motion?
Unfortunately, sir, I have a lot more.
Okay.
Is everybody all right? Because remember that other agenda item was about the plan from Marat, so I wanted to hit some highlights. I wanted you to know that just this month, new budget considerations that Mr. McKeska is just knocking out of the park. The PPE materials that are coming from the state will be here. I've got those on a slide here in a moment to tell you what we're receiving, and there's things that we're going to have to purchase as well. The portables, the recommendation that students don't touch door handles all day, so we need door stops. Water fountains being turned off, so the need for bottle fillers. We're going to have to install them at the elementary. The secondary campuses don't have paper towels. They only have the dry heaters, and so that's in the guidelines, and so we've got to add some paper towel dispensers in all the student and staff restrooms, glass screens in the front offices, signage. We've got to look at our child nutrition staff because we're moving to bagging, to-go style in classroom meals, especially at the elementary. Our substitutes is something that's keeping me up at night because we're checking to see if they're willing to come and work and stay with us. And if we have staff that are out or need to stay with a family member or child, or if they have medical concerns, we've got to have someone available. I'm getting a lot of questions about sick leave and FMLA. Our bus drivers and transportation, the same with the subs, and even adding this second late bus run. The no-touch thermometers, we just purchased 37 of them, and we've got another plan that are on stands for the entry to the schools. The technology piece is huge because webcams for recording lessons, Chromebook needs, teachers needing laptops to check out and take home that have cameras that they can record. And maybe this will be a good time to kind of celebrate a decision we've made through a lot of painstaking planning by Mr. McKeska and Mr. Crow. It's been a dream of Mrs. Adams and myself that if we could get to one-to-one on Chromebooks in our district, that we needed to go for it. And if there's ever a time to try to do it, it's now. And so we put the plan in place in the PO, and we're going for it first at grade 6 through 12, but we are going to purchase a Chromebook and check it out to every child grade 6 through 12 in West ISD. And that's a game changer. Getting that technology into their hands for the things we're trying to do with Schoology and some other areas, it's a must. It's just what we have to do. And we got to look at how we can increase next at elementary the devices as well. But I mean, this is a big thing to celebrate. They'll be ready in September to check out and to get the kids off phones and unreliable laptops and things, and having to share them throughout the day when we have one cart for a hallway. I mean, this is really incredible news, and the staff doesn't even know that news. Only Mr. Clander did. So I know our secondary teachers are going to be ecstatic. We can even put the phones off in backpacks where we don't have those challenges anymore because the kids will have a device. So this is monumental, and it'll be on that special called meeting agenda to approve Mr. McKeska's plan to implement this.
And what grades are you saying? Is that all grades?
We're doing 800, no, 6 through 12 is the start.
6 through 12, sorry.
Yeah, to start somewhere, yes ma'am. But it means other devices at the secondary campus are now available for other use. And so it's about reusing what we currently have in new ways. And so there's a chance to really do some great things for elementary and our teachers.
We were lucky enough too, Mr. Truitt, to get the 10 per classroom last year. So
Yes.
What'd she say? What'd she say?
we were lucky enough last year to get 10 per classroom. So we didn't have that prior to that. So last year we were kind of, you know, part of the beginning phases of that. So I didn't want you to think we were left out.
No, I'm glad you said that, because not left out at all, but we need to see what we can do about that over time as well, especially going into the new school.
So the older things that we have, we can shift down to the elementary to help that? Is that what you're saying?
Well, let me clarify that, because our staff, our teachers have a need for a laptop right now greater than the students at the elementary, because we want them to have a device to take between school and home because of the remote learning piece, and it must have a camera. And so if you think about the number of teachers in our district, we're going to eat up 115 of them just with that. So we think about how Ms. Adams and Mr. McKeska want to roll this out. So that's the priority, trying to get them a device that's mobile, and so that they can utilize, and then we'll go from there. But yes, for whatever's left, we can look at that. All right, we got to have a learning management system and teaching resources as well. So these were all some new budget considerations for this year, just because of the COVID plan. Again, our Monday, July 13th date, we've got our online returning and new student enrollment. So that kicks off the whole process, and we've got to make sure this planning document is done and ready, the public notice of the plan. You can see the PPE pieces that we're going to furnish for every classroom: face shields, reusable masks, tissues, thermometers, hand sanitizers, gloves, and wipes. The wipes are a big one with the cleaning process, especially between activities, but also at secondary campus between classes. And so think of our students as, hey, with a minute left, we got to train them. Here's your wipe down your chair, your desk, materials, whatever, and throw them away, and here the bell rings and go. Our teachers are not going to be able to do those things between the transitions. So it's a new way of thinking about sanitizing and getting everybody to chip in. The summer protocols that we put in place, you've seen my email about how right now we're screening, temperature checking, and wearing masks when we can't social distance and arriving in dismissal, and that's going well. So we've been able to see how that's going to work. Screenings and temperature checks, you heard me say that we're committed to daily for everyone that's on that list, and bus stops too. That's going to be our greatest challenge, but we're committed to it because it's important to our staff and our families. It's our way to ensure fevers or the yes questions are stopped before they even come into the building on any day of the school year. I get asked a lot about the confirmation or suspected cases. The state put out what you see in that box, or excuse me, in those bullet points, and I divided into diagnosed and suspected. I know you're used to reading a lot about the 14-day quarantine, and you can see the way they worded it in the document. So it's a formula: about 3 days have passed since recovery, 10 days have passed since symptoms first appeared. There's an improvement in symptoms guideline, a medical release. There's the 2 negative tests at 24 hours apart. And then whether you're a staff member or a student, you can come back to school. And they're even classifying someone that's refusing to go to the doctor and see as a positive case. And I put that in quotes, meaning they're not necessarily positive, but we have to treat them that way until they take these steps in that formula into consideration. The biggest one we're getting questions about is not the diagnosed, because people understand, they've read, they understand the testing and having to go to remote learning. The diagnosed one that I get a lot about, again, is sick leave and FMLA. It's the suspected one that was a surprise in how little there is to the plan. Because if you think about a suspected case that really could be a real case, and their access, in the building, this is the concern that we're hearing the most. And so this separated and picked up from school, the classroom that they've been in, or classrooms that they've been enclosed and disinfected and cleaned, and then the communication and notification plan to the masses of what we can share, if you think about HIPAA and those things. Making sure that our staff, students, and families know that we may have had a case Then they go into the diagnose plan that I just went over. But right now, the way it reads and the way we're understanding is if a student or a staff member is concerned about that suspected situation, it's strictly saying in there that it's voluntary or invitational if they feel they need to go into some sort of a quarantine themselves. And only until we know it's a confirmed case do we put the other things in place. And so there's going to be some understanding there. We're going to have to rely on our RNs, especially with helping us assess those situations so we can make the best decision possible for the kids and staff that are possibly affected by that part of the plan. So the suspected one, you know, a student having a cough doesn't necessarily mean that they have COVID. But every one of those situations need to be checked to make sure that the folks in our building are safe. On the face coverings, again, grades 4 through 7, if that changes, we have our plan that I mentioned earlier. All campus visitors will be screened and temperature checks. Meetings will be virtual when possible, and that's what we're always going to offer rather than have a parent come up to campus. We're going to treat our campuses as closed with carries, lunches, and breakfasts going to the classroom. Parents coming and eating is not an option this year. And even parts about the UIL games and things and even fine arts performances we'll get guidance on and explain how those things will work. If a student needs to be checked out, we will walk them to the car and verify instead of having people come into the building. And so there's some things we're going to work on there as well. On the health and hygiene practices, it's all about the hand sanitizers. We even have to do required hand washings a day. There's a piece in there about having a morning and afternoon. And there's a lot of training that they're recommending that we do with our kids. On the building cleaning and disinfecting, it's daily and ongoing. It's between classes. It's on conference periods. We have to rethink how our custodians go through the building, and it's going to be an all hands on deck because, like I said earlier, there may even be a student component to that as they help us. Transportation, another challenge again with the bus stop screenings and temperature checks because when the students come up at the bus stop, there's a chance they may have to return home if they answer yes or have a temperature. And so you can see that we're going to have to request a parent take the kids to the bus in case they have to turn around even with siblings and go back home. The late bus run is also a challenge as we figure out those routes that I mentioned earlier. The work and learning environments on the desk spread out, no sharing of supplies, special plans for all those different things from the library to computer labs to PE and recess and athletics. We have a section in our guidelines for each of those areas. For example, PE will not dress out at secondary. We've got to have social distancing in the arts and have considerations about band and instruments being played, wiping down of books in the library and not putting the books back on the shelf for a 48-hour period. All kinds of restroom guidelines, having the wipe down mice and the keyboards in the labs. There's just a lot to do when you think about all of our career and technology courses in ag. Of course, UIL will give us some guidance. Right now, what we're seeing in documents is 10 in a locker room at a time, and that's going to take some rotations, but we'll meet whatever they throw at us. Arrival and dismissal is mentioned heavily in the document, so it's targeted entry and drop-off locations, screenings and temperature checks as I reported, and getting the kids to the classrooms or period 1 as soon as possible. Dismissal will be targeted with pickup locations as well. It'll be staggered by PA announcement where buses will be called over the PA from the classroom so we don't have all of our kids being dismissed at one time and going to a gym or cafeteria or down the hallways. Meals. This is a biggie, but Mrs. Garrick's all over it already. She even already has we've already ordered and received the to-go containers. Because of the size of the cafeteria at the elementary, breakfast and lunch will be in the classroom and kind of a grab and go where the kids get their container, and we've got staff and trash cans and everything we need for that piece. It means that we're going to look at our entree choices and snack bar items and things because we're going to have to go to something simple to disperse to the kids that want to purchase or need to purchase their lunches with us. We're going to 4 lunches at the middle school, high school. Distance of seating of 4 kids per table. We'll pull out a section of the table so we can social distance and do a kind of grab and go with limited choices as well for their meals. On the schedules, we're 15 minutes, changing locations, class size adjustments. And Mr. Clander and I had a talk today that in the past we might have had the chance to offer a class at the high school for 5 kids, but this year we just can't because we want to get our class sizes as low as possible so that we can remove furniture and spread out the desks. And so that's a must this year. Transitions, we're trying to cut back on them based on the master schedules, having one-way areas, divided hallways. Today, Mrs. Cosda, maintenance came and painted the lines on the floor of the elementary, for traversing through the school. Transitions can be staggered, so we even tossed around middle school and high school being at different transition times. Student activities will go to virtual as much as possible. It's being recommended no assemblies, no field trips, no special trips like the band trip to Nashville in June, and moving programs and things to a video in nature or PA or on YouTube. So we've got to rethink the way we do some of those events. Our opening of the... Sorry, yes.
Question back on the lunch piece. So does that put the teachers in the classrooms while the kids are eating? Are they eating at the same time?
No, Ms. Costas figured out coverage because by law we have to give them a duty-free. Okay. Yeah, so, or actually it's reversed. They're going to be, I said it backwards, we're trading the time for recess and lunch so they still get their duty-free lunch. So she figured out a different way to do it, but they absolutely will still have their lunchtime in the lounge.
Okay.
Did I say Mrs. Costas?
There happen to be as many non-classroom teachers on campus as there are classroom teachers. It's going to take every single person in the building, but every single person that does not have a classroom is going to cover 1 teacher for lunch. So all that second grade team, for example, will get to still go down to the lounge and eat together during that second grade lunch time. There will just be 4 or 5 adults in the building that are going to walk to their room, and then they leave during their lunchtime, and they'll distribute the lunches to the kids in the room, and then they'll show back up at the end. So
perfect. Okay.
They need that break.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Good question. I'm glad you stopped because that one we need to make sure the right information is getting out, especially to our teachers, because of course, in addition to the 2 conference periods or work times, they're still going to have their lunch time as well.
Just one more thought. Okay, sorry.
No, you're fine.
If, I don't know what teachers usually do as far as lunches go. I don't know if they go get food and bring it in or what that looks like. I mean, I assume they have an option to purchase a lunch if they want to. Mm-hmm. I don't know budgetarily if it would be an option to provide lunches for them or not. But potentially something to think about, considering that we're trying to reduce as much in and out and so forth as we can.
I'll add it to our ideas. You got it. I get what you're saying there about them leaving and maybe coming across a COVID thing, running the subway or somewhere. So that's a good point to consider. You're right. On the opening of facilities, this is a biggie. So notice this about reservations by public or outside groups. So having outsiders, and I mean that in a nice way, outsiders, public coming into the building that we're trying to sanitize and clean, and we haven't screened them or checked them if they're renting our facilities is going to be on hiatus for this year. So whether it's the auditorium or our athletic pieces, we've got to save our cleaning and our health plan for West ISD things. And so we're just going to have some understanding there by some of these folks that love to use our West facilities. And so we can look at it again for the next year, or maybe, you know, where we're going with this plan is still an unknown. So wanted to make sure you saw that.
So David, under that
yeah.
same, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm sorry.
I'm standing,
I'm talking
stretching.
too
So
fast.
no, you're not. You're doing good. We have a lot to cover. Under that same option of, even though it's different, like having, I'm going to say the why again, but how are those people and their protocols going to be, and the protocols that we put in place be handled by them and ensured that it's handled by them? I just repeated myself, but.
My idea on that, Ms. Crawshaw, is back to what I said about Ms. Cosda and I having a come to Jesus meeting with them, and they're good.
Okay.
I don't mean that badly. We would want our people running it, and so we believe we would have staff members somewhere in the district that may want to take part in that and make extra money. And so we would want to have a say in that, because it needs to be a continuation of what we're doing as a school district. Not just academically, but health-wise and safety-wise as well, with access to our PPE equipment. So we have a big idea that I'm dying to share, but we don't have all the logistics worked out, which I believe a lot of folks will be happy with, especially Holly, because I know how she utilizes this plan right now. So we know they've got to have our cafeteria and gym, so we just need to make sure we've got control over it. Good control.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The safety is absolutely the priority, but really more out of curiosity, I'm just wondering if we have a kind of a ballpark idea of the financial impact of not being able to rent out facilities like we're used to.
Charles could give us that figure. As y'all know, you've heard me say that depending on the events, it's really about concession sales for some of those events, like the TAPS basketball tournament, some other things. But let me just use the TAPS one as an example. How can we let all those families and players, and I know you get this, John, I'm just using it as an example, come into our school day, because the TAPS tournament is during the school day and after school, with this plan in place. And they pack it for some of those games. So we will have some lost revenue. We'll still have concession pieces for our events, whatever the UIL is going to do. And we'll have to look at that menu, because it needs to be grab and go as well, because that has to be safe serving also. But the events we have through UIL, when they use our facilities for playoff games, the TAPS tournament, for example, Coach Woodard, and I don't know if he's still on here, would say it is lost revenue. So I also can't stress, since you're asking about the financial implications of this, back to that slide that you saw about our new budget considerations. Remember, the federal government sent us money that TEA decided they would keep and just use to subsidize our annual budget figures. So we didn't get any new money, and we're not getting any new money. We still have the problem of only new money being new enrollment. There are some grant opportunities that we're learning, though, aren't even fully funded. There's some FEMA pieces, the CARES Act. It just has turned into, we really can't consider any new funding sources, and we're having to put in all these new plans and take a cut because of, and like you said, in some of our athletic pieces of our building usage. And so that is another revenue stream we'll lose for this school year. But for the safety of our students and staff, we've got to do it.
So one of the things that, I mean, West is so tiny. I mean, where I live, I call myself, I'm out here on an island. Not many people venture this far down the dirt road. And so I'm out on an island, but I think it's really also important to think about when we have those UIL activities and that kind of stuff, we're asking communities that may be more of a hot spot than what we've been blessed not to be. That we may be having more exposure to that by having additional activities. And I know that's not about opening the buildings thing, but it's a consideration. As all this comes on, we have more people coming into our community more than just along the interstate.
You're correct, and that's something UIL's having to grapple even just with our schedules for sports and things. Makes me think about Destination Imagination and Mrs. Hook's TSA. I mean, we even host a TSA tournament that brings in schools from all over the area. So there's a lot of considerations that are going into this, and it's going to make it challenging for us, but we're up for it. We're going to figure it out. Excuse me. On the training pieces, on the first day of school, there's a requirement in this packet that our students must go through training of everything I'm sharing with you today, including things like proper hand washing techniques and proper ways to sneeze into your arm. And there's quite a list of things. And obviously the staff will have to receive training that's required over this plan during the red days in August. So we have a lot of different pieces there that we've got to ensure that are in place. And then that last one I've added, because the most asked question even today was about staff and if they get sick or have to be tested. And, you know, it's great news that, as you know, in the last year, we've changed the number of leave days for our staff to 10. But if you've been in West a long time, you really haven't had an opportunity to build up your days. And so the question I'm being asked is if they have to go out for quarantine or the testing piece or the 10-day and the 3-day or whatever it's going to be for them, how's that going to work? Because when their days are up, their days are up, and that means they're 10 plus the ones they've been able to bank. And so it's leading to a lot of discussion about, is TEA going to give us some guidance? Are we going to need the board, you guys, to approve a resolution about if we send them to test and they're waiting the 3 days, is it going to be paid leave? How are we going to handle staff that do get sick and have COVID in their days, because the sick bank will only go so far. And if I'm a staff member this year, I'm probably not donating to the sick bank. I'm probably going to hoard or keep my days because I may need them. And so it's the perfect storm in trying to figure out how best we can help our staff. And so I hope to have some answers for that at our special called meeting, because it's the one that's on the mind of a lot of our staff members right now. So
I would like to see that somehow, if the teachers, if staff, anybody, aides, anybody are they're during the waiting period of getting test results back or that kind of stuff, and they have no symptoms, that they can be doing some sort of piece online. So they're still working, but they're doing some sort of something with students and that kind of stuff. So they don't have to count those kind of days.
That could be an expectation. And like you said, it just depends on how they feel and if it's, like you said, and
they're symptom free.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. If you think if that's the end of it, unfortunately it's not, but y'all are being very patient with us, but I just, you guys need to see where we are. And this happened to be the board meeting when it all came to a head with Marath's information just from yesterday. I think it's important we shift to Amanda, because you're going to hear a lot about this remote instruction plan. And I want to make sure you understand that everything I just shared is just one half of it. I just really shared the on-campus stuff, arrival to dismissal, and what we're doing to keep our staff and kids and community safe if they're choosing the on-campus side. But Amanda's got the remote piece, and I thought we could divide it up this way, where she could share briefly, and if you don't mind, Ms. Adams, about where we are on the remote piece. So I'm going to take down my PowerPoint there, and we're going to let Amanda go.
Thank you, Mr. Truitt. David did mention some big ideas that we have for remote learning.
Hey, Amanda, time out real fast. I'm sorry. I'm getting some messages. Board, there's been a request to take a short break and then have Amanda go, or is everybody okay with doing 5 minutes? All right, so for our guests, we're going to leave it live, but you may see some of us move to the video down in case someone needs to grab a drink or run to the restroom. Maybe a time for some of our guests as well. So we'll be back. Let's just make it an easy 8:45. We'll round it off there. So Ms. Adams, be ready to go at 8:45. Okay, we'll be back, guys. Thank you. Right. Waiting on Crowder, Sikora. Holly, are you there? Oh, we lost Mike too. I thought I saw Mike. All right, we'll take another minute or two. Oh, there's Mike.
I've got like two more bites of my taco and I'll be back on.
Oh, no fair. Looks like Jason's eating too. What do you have there, Mr. Yanni?
Let me show you what I got.
Y'all are liking this Zoom meeting a little too much. This may become the West ISD norm. Now you get to eat. That glass right there, that's sacrilege, Mr. Yanni.
Go time.
All right, let's see. We've only got Mr. Sikora still. Oh, there he is. All right, Amanda, there's Kenny. We're ready.
Okay, I'll try to be brief, but please feel free to ask questions. As we went down this path of being really open and looking at all the different options for remote learning, Mr. Tripp mentioned a lot of the things that we're going to talk a little bit about in his presentation. But first of all, I'd kind of like to explain the two choices we had, and that is synchronous versus asynchronous. And as you could assume, synchronous just means that a student in a class attends live virtually. So if I'm teaching ELAR 8 at 9 o'clock and that's when my class is, I am on that class live. And so they would just attend all their classes live all day long. And so we looked a lot at that and decided that's probably not the best way for our families, knowing that some of them may not be able to be that learning coach that Mr. Tripp mentioned at that specific time, as well as just the logistics of what that would look like to be able to be live all the time as a teacher and with our technology. The other maybe distractor there that we made us steer away from synchronous is that it's not even available. We're not allowed to do synchronous for pre-K2. And so we decided to go with asynchronous. And asynchronous basically means that it is provided the instruction at a time other than when that live class is going on. And so we decided to do that plan. And I'll be honest, it's kind of a mix of both, because there are some times when there will be synchronous instruction going on. And for example, dyslexia courses need to be taught live to be able to have that interaction with the students. So there'll be synchronous components to our asynchronous plan. And so those are the two options, and we did go with the asynchronous after reviewing those and also kind of looking at what other districts around us were doing and why. And so going down that path, we did get some guidance late last week on the asynchronous side. When we read through that, we had a pretty robust plan already that fit that model. And so kind of some high points are that TEA is saying, and I agree wholeheartedly, that our remote learning needs to mirror our in-person learning as closely as possible. It is not sustainable to ask our teachers to do a remote learning plan and an in-person plan. So we're trying to meld those together so that our kids get the same experience and are prepared for the reinstatement of accountability this year. And they are prepared to perform. And so we've put some things in place that we think make that possible, and that is by using an LMS that is able to be seen by all students. They don't have to be in remote learning to use our LMS. And so our teachers will be, there's a heavy training piece like we've never done before, and support at a call will be there to help them through that piece of making sure that all students have access to that LMS information and that it matches. Another big component of remote learning that we've been asked to do is to provide remote learning at any time that a parent requested. So it's kind of twofold. If a parent calls us and says, you know, within 24 hours, I want my kids to go remote, we need to be able to do that. Now, we cannot let them back into campus, and we can hold them to a grading period, which will be helpful for both sides. but we can consider that. But at any time, a parent can make the decision that they would rather be remote. And so in order to make that happen, really every teacher becomes a remote teacher. And so that they're prepared to be providing that support within 24 hours for any student in their class. So at some point during the year, I expect that every teacher will have remote students at some point. And so we're going to start them off helping them through that.
So you said that, I'm sorry, you said that pre-K through 2 can't do remote.
They can do remote,
So,
they can't do synchronous. They can't.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. So
Okay, and
K through 12 can do remote.
okay, and the where'd my other question go? It left my brain. Yeah, never mind. Go ahead.
That's okay. If it comes to you, come on, jump on in. The other big picture item that we looked at is that our remote learners are under the same 90% attendance rule. And so we had to make some decisions on how to best take attendance, and we did get guidance from TEA. So our LMS, Schoology, does allow us to, it has analytics, which is a very important part for us. It timestamps, it shows us how long they were on. But that's the tech piece of that. But the other part of the attendance is this learning coach idea that we researched and found through other online remote learning academies. This is an idea they had, but we feel like it's such an important part. If you have a second grader who you are going to sign up for remote learning, they need that adult learning coach to help take attendance and let us know they're doing what they need to be doing to progress, as well as just navigate the system and make sure they have good communication with the teachers at that young of an age. Our older kids, I can speak from my own experiences with my older kids, still need that as well. So we need that really good partnership with parents or the designee that's that adult learning coach at home. So that piece also with the contact with the teacher, helping us to make sure attendance is taken and we are going to be held to that 90%, which is an important piece of this as we move back into making sure our kids are prepared. It's not at all like March through May where we were sustaining what students learned really before. Now we are supposed to and will provide our robust whole TEKS-based learning experience to a student, whether they're on campus or remote. Lee, did you have a question?
Yeah, so you're saying that a parent I can switch my kid back and forth, but you're saying that they lock in for a 6 weeks period or a 9-week grading period, basically, yes?
Well, they can lock it's kind of on the remote side. So they can be on campus at any time and they decide they want to be remote. Well, we can ask them to stay remote until the end of a grading period.
But they can leave anytime.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
But they can't come out of remote at any time. Okay.
Yeah, that's the guidance we're getting right now. So still working through what that looks like. So those big picture things of the learning coach, the attendance, the mirroring of that plan, and as well as helping our parents make the right decision in registration, offering this is what it looks like if you're remote. This is what it looks like if you choose on campus, and having them commit, at least initially, we think we'll get some of those that do wish to be remote, on all year, will let us know early, hopefully. And so those big pieces, there are so many more nuts and bolts that we're talking with teachers today. As Mr. Tripp mentioned, we talked with middle high school, tomorrow will be elementary, and just how this looks. We felt very passionately that they needed extra time in their day to facilitate this, even though it is going to mirror in person. There are some things they need to be able to do to have, we're required to provide live instructional support, even if you're on remote learning. So during that, what I'm calling the remote instruction conference, that could happen, as well as uploading your videos. So we'll provide those very specific details to our teachers. The feedback we're getting from today, it was very positive. I think our teachers like that we're not asking them to do 2 separate lesson planned, but to learn how to do that at the same together and provide meaningful experiences in one way. With differentiation, of course, being a big part of that. We've gotten questions about specifically things that are not necessarily usually put into remote that we will need to, like guided table. And so we'll provide training on that. We've done some research there and get teacher input. How to do a science lab online. And so just providing that support to our teachers for those really specialized things that it's harder to think could be done remotely, but we just have to really rely on our teachers' creative abilities, and then we're talking to other districts and seeing kind of how they're handling it. So providing those opportunities. Let's see. I believe I wanted to hit just a little bit on special populations. I mentioned earlier some synchronous parts, like for dyslexia. We feel strongly that those special population areas, we will provide a lot of synchronous help to them, whether it be those live classes, like I said, for dyslexia, or whether it be, you know, our ESL teacher contacting her ESL students weekly or however much they need to discuss their assignments. So those parts will also be talking and will be put in our plan. Is there any other question I can answer or comment? I feel like this plan, we learn a little more each day. Next week, we're supposed to get even more guidance, mainly in the form of kind of what some plans look like. We will be required and will submit with attestations our plan for asynchronous to TA for approval. And there is a rubric already that we're looking at to make sure we're following those guidelines. But above all else, I feel communication and support for our students, families, and teachers is the most important thing about this remote learning goal, making sure they understand the why behind the things we're choosing. And so we're really going to work on that piece.
David, back to your questions of your survey. Do you know who those people are that answered either way? That's the first component. You do, okay. And so do we have a handle on what our special needs population is thinking? Is the majority coming back, or there are some that are, how many are staying, what percentage, if not numbers, are staying at home? And how we see the system working if we do have some remote learners, because, you know, everybody's shouting, it's on the news, it's everywhere, that it's not as good, which we all know, but it's even worse on our special populations.
So far, and remember the number I shared, it was 2 SPED, 2 ESL, and 1 dyslexia. Isn't that right, Amanda? It was a small number. The feedback we're getting from those families is they want their kids in school, but we didn't hear from some of the families that we're going to need to reach out to about some specific situations. It was also surprisingly an observation that Amanda and I had was some of the families that were choosing the remote learning or some of our, and I'm just going to do a broad brush definition or label here of our struggling learners, that we wouldn't recommend remote learning as their primary method of instruction in this upcoming school year. So we need to get to the root of why the family is thinking that that's best, and it could be health, or they could be thinking they love the March through May and pajamas till noon every day, and oh, I'll work on it when I feel like it. And that's not a reason to do remote learning, because it's going to be different, as Amanda has shared, than the March through May plan. We were just surviving. It has to mirror, again, the on-campus plan. It's the same plan for both. And so we need to have some conversations with some of the folks that are, like I said earlier, that are picking remote right now. But to answer your other question, it's going to look differently for each child. We're going to look at what their plans are, and if it means going by home with a mask, if it means online, if it means over the telephone, whatever we have to do, we're going to have to meet their needs with where they are. And frankly, don't have a choice in providing those services. So we've got to have the same level we would as in person. And it's going to be various ways that we do that.
I would say it's a layered approach for sure. You know, multiple ways that we're going to handle it, but individualized for sure.
Amanda, have y'all already selected an LMS platform?
Yes, we use Schoology in grades 6 through 12 heavily, and we did select that for the whole district because it is one of the few that has all the components we need to be able to record attendance.
Perfect. And so the parents and students should already be familiar with that and that'll, okay, cool. All right.
Well, I mean, I feel strongly that there needs to be a parent training piece where we initially orient again, just to make sure, because we're using it at a level that we've never used it before. And we're going to work really hard with our teachers to form, dare I say, like a template so that everything is a uniform, of course, developmentally appropriate, where you see icons in elementary where you might see links at high school, but that when a parent logs on, if they have multiple students, it feels the same, so it's not hard to navigate. So a big training piece on that for students, teachers, and parents.
I'd recommend like a step-by-step guide that tells them exactly, log in, click on this button. Okay, then you'll see this screen, show them a picture of the screen. Now click this button, highlight it in or circle it in red. Like, you know, we've got to be so basic.
Yeah, great idea. I even think maybe a screencast where we walk them through it while I'm in a test student, as well as a one-pager, as well as some virtual meetings for all categories, really.
Okay, sounds like you guys got it under control. Cool.
Well, Holly, I'm going to jump in on that one, and Amanda knew I would. It's not happening swimmingly at the elementary yet. They're not familiar with the remote learning side of Schoology, and some of our staff would even probably say it's not for them. So we've got to re-roll this out and make sure that the staff understands that the state has guidelines for the progress monitoring piece for attendance that Amanda mentioned. And there's very few LMSs that are available that meet those standards. So they probably have a favorite that we could use and that maybe we used in March through May, but it won't meet the approval guideline of the LMS for remote instruction this year. So Ms. Cosda actually came to see Ms. Adams and I, and with Ms. Cook, and Leanna came as well. And we had a long discussion about how the elementary staff really needs something for communication as well. But we don't want to run 5 different things where the first grade has Remind and third grade using Seesaw and 5th grade using, what's another one?
Dojo.
And they have kids in all 3 and they're having to run 3 apps and 3. So she's got a great process to review them all and to come to some consensus, because we know, and we're going to admit this, Amanda will too, that Schoology's communication side of things or alerts, whatever wording you want to use, is not what it needs to be to engage our families on not just a daily basis, but even an hourly or up to minute. So we were going to have to run both, and whichever one the elementary chooses, I want to discuss with the middle school about using as well for communication and behavior and news, and so we can keep that going. So there's a big training piece. I'm just warning y'all that the elementary is not at the level of what the high school has been using it as, or even the middle school. So we have a big piece there that we have to turn around in 5 weeks.
Yeah, I'd like to add that it was pretty seamless at high school last year when we had to go remote. They used Schoology, and it really showed us what Schoology could do. And teachers that are on, I'm not going to say you'll love it, but my commitment is, my goal is that you're going to like it and you're going to understand and see why it can be a good tool for our families, and we'll do whatever it takes to help you feel comfortable.
I think personally, the training piece will be huge for that. Once they feel comfortable and know how to use it, same with parents, it will become like second nature. A lot of it's just that learning curve, and it takes the right training tools to get them where they need to be.
I agree. Thank you.
I think the challenge there too, Holly, is LMSs weren't meant for elementary age kids. You know, these are developed at college level. and we've morphed them in the high school because of dual credit and other usages. And then we pushed it down the middle school out of necessity. And now we're asking little kids, and really their parents will be directing that learning. And it's just not a perfect system, but the TEA was clear on the guidelines for the LMS, and there's not many options. Fortunately, we're already using one that does meet it. Because the attendance is all down to how we can log and see that the kids were in the system by minute. And so, and the progress monitoring piece. And so that pretty much determined that we needed to go with Schoology, and we got to make this work. Did I say that correctly, Amanda?
Yes, sir.
All right, board, that was a lot.
Very good. A lot of information to digest, and y'all have a Herculean task ahead of you, and I don't envy you at all. But thank you for those reports.
You bet.
Let's go to agenda item number 11, which is an action item. It's consideration and possible action by the board to approve the new start date for the 2020-21 West ISD school year, which is Monday, August the 17th at 2020. Mr. Truitt?
Self-explanatory. You've already heard me say that this is the one item we need to let our families know we've moved the school year up 2 days. No matter what calendar we've looked at since all this has come out with these guidelines, we believe we need to get school going on that Monday and have those 2 days for later in the year if we need them. So tonight I'm seeking your approval to officially change the start date from Wednesday the 19th to Monday, August 17th.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay, motion's been
Sorry.
made by Lee, second by Kenny. All those in favor, please show of hands to move the school date. All right, 7-0. Thank you. Agenda item number 12 is also an action item. It's consideration and possible action by the board to approve the 2021 West ISD, West Elementary, West Middle School, High School, Brookhaven Youth Ranch Executive Summary Improvement Plan Reports, presented by Amanda Adams.
Mr. Adams, before you jump in on that, board, that was in your packet, and I'd like to make a recommendation because of the time. Can we go to a method for approval on this for tonight? Because these are items we've been talking about with A through F. The red is what's new. I know you guys always peruse your packets ahead of time. So can we just take questions instead of her running through all 5 documents and then look at approval if you guys are comfortable with where you are in knowledge of those bullet points? Frankly, there should be no surprises in there. Everything in there you've heard us talk about over the last year, and now it's just in that summary report by campus. So if there's specific questions, we'll answer anything, but this may be a better way to discuss it based on what you have questions or concerns about. Do y'all mind doing that on this? Is that okay?
No, that's a good recommendation. Thank you.
So with Charles and Amanda, me, myself, Carla's on, the principals are on. We'll answer anything if y'all want to look at the red in particular. And if you need explanation of what something is, we will answer it. Way to think about the red board is that's new for 21-22. Black was in the 2021, or I said that wrong. No, 19, sorry, I got years, 2021. I'm getting ahead of myself. And black, it was in 1920, but it's continuing because there's other phases to it. And if something is implemented with fidelity, it's off the list because it's now a part of our school system. So you could compare last year's and there's stuff missing now.
Looks good, looks good.
Any questions? We'll answer anything.
I'll give you a few more seconds, a few more minutes. If you have no questions, I will call for a motion to accept the agenda item number 12 as presented.
So
Kenny, you
moved.
making the motion? Kenny's made the motion. Jason has seconded. All those in favor, please show of hands to accept agenda item number 12. Looks like it's 7-0. Thank you. Agenda item number 13 is also an action item. It's consideration and possible action by the board to approve the West ISD Texas Association of School Boards, TASB's West ISD Board Delegate. And we've done this in the past. Lee, if I'm not mistaken, you were the delegate last year, correct? So.
And I'll be happy to do it again this year,
Okay.
unless somebody wants to do it.
All right. Lee has volunteered. Is there anybody else that would like to nominate someone or volunteer yourself? If
Oh,
not,
come on, guys. Don't rush to raise your hand for this. Come on.
the floor is open then for a motion to nominate Lee Crawshaw as our delegate for the West ISB School Board for the TASB at the upcoming convention. Holly, I see your hand go up first.
Yes.
To make the motion. Who seconded it? Oh, Kenny seconded. All those in favor, please show of hands. Okay, 7-0. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate you being willing and able to take and be our delegate. I know we're well represented by you, and I thank you very much for that. It is now 9:12. At this time, we will adjourn into closed executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, subsection 071, 129, 074, and 072. So you have the information for the executive session and the password. So sign off, folks. We will be back after executive session is over.
Are you good? Okay. All right. Sorry, Dr. Sparks, if you'll say that again, since
I will. It is now 9:49 p.m. We will reconvene at this time from closed executive session for possible action relative to items considered during closed executive session. Mr. Truitt, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you all. If you'll look at 15A through C, tonight we'll start with 15A it's an action item. I'm seeking your approval of the personnel report as presented.
Okay. The floor is now open for a motion to address item 15A as presented. John, I see your hand first. Is it for the motion? Jason, I see your hand second. All those in favor for the motion, please show of hands. All right, looks like 7-0. Thank you very much. That brings us to 15B. Mr. Truitt?
There's no action on 15B. There's no new contract recommendations for tonight.
Okay.
We still have posted high school assistant principal and Brookhaven PE are our only openings.
All right. Very good.
15C, as worded, I'm seeking your approval of the confidential student matter resolution that we previously discussed.
Okay, the floor is
So
open
moved.
for. Okay, was that you?
Sorry.
Lee?
Yeah. I'll stop
Okay.
answering so fast.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Lee made the motion. Is there a second? Mike Garrick seconds it. All those in favor, please show of hands. All right, 7-0. Thank you very much. That brings us to our report from Mr. Truitt on the closing remarks.
All right, we'll wrap up here. First, I want to say thanks to all of you for the long meeting tonight. I know some of these topics were tough to do on Zoom, especially George and the color board, and then trying to talk to you guys about our COVID-19 plan, which has evolved greatly just in the last 24 hours. So thank you for your attention. If y'all have questions about the plan, please call me or come by and see me. The elementary meeting in the morning will be very informative if we need to make some tweaks and changes, calendar discussion as well. And they may even want to talk about the colored board and those things. We're going to open it up to a lot of discussions with them while we have them in their undivided attention on some back to school stuff. I know we glossed over it, but guys, going one-to-one with the Chromebooks at grade 6 to 12 is historic. It's system changing. It's instruction changing. I mean, I so appreciate Charles's ability to manage our budgets and find funds to dream big item. Appreciate y'all's dedication to building a fund balance so we don't have to worry about not having the backing to do something big like this. So I know we glossed over that one, but that's a historic decision. I know that sounds dramatic, but it really is. To give all the kids a check amount of Chromebook is huge.
And that's a long-term benefit. It's not just because of COVID. It's a long-term benefit.
Exactly. So, you know, the dream is to move down in some elementary grades over time, especially the upper grades. But like Carrie Costas said, we had just given 10, and now we have some laptops to do some amazing things with for students and staff as well. So it just helps the overall delivery of what we're trying to do with our Race to an A plan. All right, to the agenda, just a reminder on 16A of those dates. I hope you have them on your calendar. And again, I'm going to offer for a third time, if anybody wants budget time with Truett McKeska, we'd love to dazzle you with our budget plans for the 2021 school year. So let me know. We can schedule something, and even if you need evening, we can figure that out. So just let me know if you want to schedule that, and we can go over it as much as you want to go over it. A big piece again was that slide where I shared all the new expenses due to our COVID planning. So we can do that. And if Charles were still on the show here, the Zoom, we can do the step raises. And so we're looking really good on our budget planning for next year. And so there will be more shared at this called meeting I want to talk about on 16C. On 16B, I gave you our back to school packet in the very back of your agenda. I just wanted to remind you of some dates of where we needed you. Just as I see you, I'm going to keep giving you this time. Remember on Monday, August the 3rd, if you guys want to come have breakfast with our new staff, and there's not many of them this year, which is such a blessing of retention from our folks from this year, that we'll have breakfast. If you want to come, Larry, you're supposed to speak and welcome them. But any of you that show up, we got breakfast for you. You can meet them all, and we'll introduce you and let you share a little bit about yourselves if you can make it. We're going to do lunch at noon. So again, we'll feed you at noon if you want to come then. And if you can make both or one or the other, that'd be fabulous. Just to help us with the new staff and let them know how much we appreciate them.
What time is breakfast?
Oh, it's at 8.
Okay.
Yes, 8 on the 3rd, 8 and noon. So it's an and/or situation. We'd love to have you for both, or we'll take you for one. And then on Monday, August 10th, right now, we still have convocation down for 1 o'clock. Although with all this COVID planning, we've been having a discussion about moving it to just welcome virtually from me, or I'm going to go by the campuses and do some awards, because our teachers need time to get ready. As much as I love convocation, especially getting that goofy and tell jokes and try to be funny, and y'all know that's really about getting the year started off on the right note and sharing things that we've been working on, and kind of a pep rally. I can do it other ways, and they get back 2 hours of their day. And so we've been having a discussion that it may not be the best year to use that time for that, where I can go by the campuses and say hi and still do service awards and say how much we appreciate them. So we're rethinking that. We still do ice cream, of course, but I'll let you know on the final decision on that one. Because
David, can we even consider doing that as a large group based on the stuff that you showed us tonight, where they're saying no staff training? They want it all online.
We can, because you can 6 feet in there because of the size.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're blessed with a large enough arena where we could skip a row and skip 4 seats, and kind of like we did for graduation, and have everybody spaced out. So, but that's another
What's
consideration.
the point? Because you don't have the camaraderie when you're that far apart. So
Well,
what's
that's
the
kind of
point?
where we are. It's not a typical convocation anyway. So we, we probably have to wear masks too. And so we're, not that that's a bad thing. I got to stop saying that. Got to wear a mask. Yes, we have to wear a mask.
You get to wear one.
Yes, we get to. So we're, I'll let you know about that. But right now, if you'll just leave it on your calendar on the 10th at 1, and I'll let you know. And then the last item, need your consideration for the called meeting, and I have many items. Here's what will be on the agenda as of today. You need to approve the Chromebooks. We need to do updates to the code of conduct. Charles will have another update on the healthcare. We have the second half of my appraisal because of the move to June for this year. And then just with COVID, we haven't been face-to-face. We've got the calendar, and we've got our COVID-19 plan, and then whatever else Charles or Amanda or Carla has for us. And every one of those things, we can't wait till August 4. So I apologize for asking for another meeting, but we need another meeting. So I'd like to recommend Wednesday night, July 22nd, or I can do the 29th. Either one will work for us. So whoever, if we want to just have a discussion then about who's available both dates, or if there's a bad one, maybe some of you are on vacation, or we don't have to do a Wednesday night. I was just doing Wednesday because that's what we traditionally do. We can do another night if you need to.
And Wednesday hard on John?
No, we're not doing Wednesday night church right now. I'm answering for you, John. I'm sorry.
I was sticking up for you, John. I was looking out for you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, they
I know
won't
you're
let
not
me have
capable.
church right now.
Maybe the easiest thing to do is thumbs up if you're available the 22nd. Anybody not available the 22nd? Thumbs up if, or Jason, no, to the 22nd? Okay. What about thumbs up to the 29th? Who can't do the 29th? So actually we can do either. So what do y'all want?
Earlier the better. Get your thing done.
All right, let's go with the 22nd, 6:30, but we're shooting for social distancing face to face if I'm hearing correctly with masks. So
What I would like to do, yeah, especially we're going to be talking about you. So, yeah.
that sounded funny. Okay, weird, but no problem. Okay. The way you worded it made me chuckle. Yes, talking about me.
Talking about you.
So, all right, so we'll social distance. What I'd like to do that night is with the boardroom, instead of doing our little gray tables and even having those close, we'll live stream and each be at one of the round tables around the room. And presenters will use the mic if y'all are okay with that system. So we're really far apart if y'all are okay with that.
That's good.
All right, so no audience, live stream in the boardroom. 10 or less. So it'll just be probably Amanda, Carla, Charles, me, and you guys.
Bring your masks.
That's 11 actually. So we'll have Carla and Amanda duke it out.
Yeah.
You said 6:30 regular time?
Yes, ma'am. All right, so I'll send you a
On
reminder.
the 22nd.
Yes, 22nd. I'll send you reminders. Don't worry. Okay.
All right.
All right. That's it, Dr. Sparks. Good meeting. Sorry it's so long, but lots to share.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it very much. The floor is now open for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Holly, I see your hand making the motion that we adjourn. Is there a second? Jason seconds that. All of those in favor? We'll see you later. Thanks again.
And it is